My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. That's called stalking in the path. That's called amplification. And it's pursuant to what is monitoring on my device. That's a psychopath looking up like they don't know what I'm talking about, like they don't know what's going on. This is the P.O.C. Let me show you the mental illness exhibited by this demon over here and by the demon flying in circles. You already here. They're going to prison. This is psychopathic pacing. The library is closed, and the demon knows that when you're engaging in surveillance, and they also know it in the engineered light. This is, again, Craig Hazelwood that's committing a kidnapping and referring to the municipal code. All right, this is Vivanco referring to what is harassment of the demons that you're documenting, engaging in what is kidnapping while you're stalking under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. Oh, you don't have any authority under the municipal code or the penal code that you're in violation of, by the way, while you're engaged in criminal conduct, including the conspiracy to commit murder as psychopaths that are stalking with light, sexual assault and battery, in concert with the Ontario Police Department. And this is what Jason Isaac Fields is relying on. Tracy Banks is relying on this to date as the same entity that's stalking as a police department that committed kidnapping December 19, 2025. Hazelwood, number 21167, and Owens are going to prison. They committed kidnapping and furtherance of murder while gang stalking, which is exactly what this is right here at the very heavily documented Ovid Family Community Library, where this same agency committed kidnapping under the 10:29 a.m. fake sun, stalking by helicopter also in that video, where the entity with Corey Walton and the rest of the demons that are going to federal prison engaged in that pattern of conduct. That's impossible light moving across the top of that building. The Ontario police are engaged in criminal defamation on the internet under my name. You will see what are acts of kidnapping while they falsely depict my character as one being a criminal ever, and also engaging in what is sexual violence. Molestation of a child is what Jason Fields and Tracy Banks, this entity, has defamed me as, while they've been conspiring my murder, stating that I'm missing, they don't know where I'm at, where that agency is engaged in kidnapping me and defaming my character and kidnapping while stalking. That's how they commit kidnapping. The entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct while they are monitoring my evidence, and the demons that are fearful engage in that very conduct while they're engaged in psychopathic conduct, stalking with light. Because your headlights aren't skating through that hallway like all those demons are. They're going to prison. That's not getting away. They're not getting away with anything. They're going to prison. The demons inside of Ovid, they're going to prison. The entity that's engaged in criminal summoning like Tracy Banks at Woodside, they're going to prison. The demons gang stalking at the Economy Inn, where I show you the fake centers remaining, they engage in criminal summoning with that agency that is stalking for years and defaming, they're going to prison. While they're engaged in ongoing delusional conduct because they are already surrounded with the evidence, everyone is looking at what is terrorism that's established in the United States. Jason Fields and Tracy Banks are still gang stalking and furtherance of murder, leading this system of gang stalking while they are mentally ill feces consumers, depicting my character as one that's a drug addict, a prostitute, when that actually describes them, and they are engaged in stealing my money and paying demons like this who are acting with impunity. That's the pattern of conduct. The entity that is stalking with the police, you're not doing anything other than stalking. 7XRB 855, I believe. I can't really see that, but Securitas is gang stalk with impossible light as well. I just want to be clear, the entity is stalking by helicopter as a futile means, a feckless means. That's impossible light. That little spotlight's not creating that light activity. That's Securitas, that is a terrorist, that's threatening with the Ontario police, and that's also a psychopath that's demon-possessed. And they're engaged in vagina monitoring as well and furtherance of murder. The Ontario police are exactly why the people of the state are going to prison. That department is being disbanded. Jason Isaac Fields is threatening me and stalking me via that department, and there is no legitimate investigation ever underway by him. He's engaged in what is gang stalking me and still doing so with regard to what is seeking to obstruct justice, which is why he's going to prison. This is all criminal conduct, and this is mental illness and public corruption. The entity that's sounding sirens is doing so in Engineer Light. All right, this is the entity that's engaged in targeting in this environment. And this is the same impossible light activity that's inside of the library where the entity is gang stalking. This is psychopathic pacing. This is what I've been putting up on the internet all day long while they're stalking. P.O.C. The entity that's going to the bus stop, this is what they're doing at the bus stop, which is not their headlights skating across the wall. The shadow of the vehicles across the wall. Psychopathic pacing with the sirens. They're gang stalking together. Mike LORENZ is going to prison, ladies and gentlemen. He's a mentally ill psychopath, a terrorist that's been exposed, an enemy of the United States, and so is the terrorist Jason Fields, who is acting with his sex spouse, Tracy Banks. Two delusional psychopaths are going to prison for a failed plot to defame my character, murder me through this terrorism, and then abscond away with my money and my property. They're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. and this is evidence speaking to what is impunity. Mike LORENZ is not only going to prison, he's going to prison and he's not getting out. This is P.O.C. and this is impunity. Every single last demon, every single last stalker, every iteration of criminal summoning, every ongoing documented act of stalking by helicopter, they're going to prison and they're not getting out. This is P.O.C. Ovid Family Community Library. It is currently 6:21 p.m. That's the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, doing so while I'm going to continuously publish the evidence online, putting Jason Fields, a terrorist, a psychopath, a sex offender, and a liar onto the internet. And his co-defendants, Tracy Banks' co-defendants, who are stalking in helicopter and then committing kidnapping while I'm sleeping at a bus stop that they created while they were stalking me on the job. They're going to federal prison for that. This is P.O.C. It's an act of obstruction while the entity is stalking me while I'm publishing evidence. That's the pattern of conduct, and they do so with their little demon-possessed children. They do so with the entity that is immigrants that are in this country targeting with that police department. That's the pattern of conduct. P.O.C. There's no takeoffs over this apartment building. And there's no coincidence where the airport is stalking. That's called crossing path as well. It's psychopathic pacing combined. Not only are you not going to hear the audible activity as though it's supposed to be a takeoff, which are not happening over the senior citizen apartment complex at 215 E.C. Street, the entity's doing so in the engineered environment while the people of the state are demons who are stalking and lurking with the government, including the one using helicopters to stalk me and harass and threaten me on behalf of Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks, by the way, these are delusional demons who have already lost with regard to trying to make sense the defamation that they committed while plotting my murder, i.e. gang stalking me, and also manufacturing a whole criminal record and mental illness while they've been engaged in what is the pattern of conduct. This is where the entity is stalking as an airport. Here's my upright shadow here on the wall. Let me come in so you can see it. This is impossible light activity while the entity is maintaining that means of surveillance, and the entity is maintaining this environment with regard to surveillance that you need to know is underway everywhere while the entity is engaged in what is targeting me in furtherance of murder. Doing so while you are stalking as the airport is the direct prosecution of the gang stalking police, which you already know because of the body of evidence of them stalking me, and doing so while I'm also in use of my device publishing evidence, not coincidentally, about this pattern of conduct, and the people of the state who you already know are light slingers, feces consumers, and vagina monitors, doing so on behalf of Jason Fields and Tracy Banks. They're going to prison. They're mentally ill. They're being inside of the library stalking all day long, and this is no environment that is naturally occurring, nor is it irrelevant. The entity is engaged in psychopathic pacing, targeting the senior citizen complex. Paul Leon's being removed from office. That's the city hall. The airport is south of Hope Boulevard. The entity is acting like it's taking off. We're rising, like it's rising right here where the entity is maintaining this plane activity. That's the pattern of conduct. P.O.C. The Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport are invested in what is murder. They're invested in murder with regard to stealing millions and millions and millions of dollars, and it's an international syndicate with regard to what are targeting children. That's also why the airport's being shut down, in addition to conspiring my murder and stalking. The use of resources, the planes, the money, the companies, the people, the manpower, and the level of corruption that is at play is unprecedented while an entity is engaged in what is psychopathic pacing. This video is 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Right now, the entity is engaged in what is a high frequency of flight while I capture the evidence, which is relevant to the mental illness. As you document demons who despise being discerned, I'm also documenting what is their criminal conduct, and that's where you get the very incriminating, because it's already stalking, which the investigation, the court case is going to show. They engage in more and more of it as you document it, okay? They're doing it in the engineered environment, which Securitas shares, and the entity is stalking right here by helicopter with regard to my use of my device in the same way that they're stalking by planes with regard to use of my device, and the entity is stalking me like I showed going to Economy Inn, where they're acting like they're flying, they're not acting like they're taking off, they are hovering over my head at Nevada and Euclid Avenue, stalking, just like the police department. And Fields is going to prison for it. P.O.C. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing on my phone, and then you're going to see why Mike LORENZ is going to prison for a pattern of conduct of criminal surveillance. It's called criminal summoning. That's in the background. And this is what's going online on X and what's already published on the internet regarding what is Fields is going to prison. The entity is stalking, that is threatening with the audible activity of helicopter. All they're doing is pacing around sounding sirens. Just like that's all they do inside of the library, pace all around me, stalking while they're monitoring what I'm doing online. Those are the psychopaths that are being removed. No fire department, no airport, no police department, no demons operating ambulances like American Medical Response, because all they're doing is engaging in surveillance and furtherance of murder. And that's exactly what I'm publishing online. The entity is ceasing the helicopter activity that you already know. No one's imagining because you just saw the video. In fact, it's the video that I'm sharing onto X right now at 6:16 p.m. The entity is engaging in the same pattern of conduct like they were in this video, stalking by a helicopter while they keep my evidence under surveillance. To engage in that is to communicate an unlawful threat, for which not only is that agency being disbanded for every kidnapping like the one that Hazelwood and Owens committed while engaged in federal stalking and then referring to the municipal code. The entities engaging in what is kidnapping and harassment and ongoing stalking and furtherance of murder while they're engaging in surveillance on the internet, which is putting Jason Fields, the co-conspirator, and Tracy Banks, the co-conspirators, actually the intellectually impotent. They are not masterminds or geniuses at all, because if that were the case, I wouldn't be prosecuting the whole demon-possessed entity, which I am doing while the police are stalking, including by the sound of sirens and helicopter. This is P.O.C. It's currently 6:47 p.m., where the entity is engaged in what is criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder. That's a threat to your life. It's psychological torture. It's relevant to what is the ongoing molestation of my person with that which is not occurring. It's under the shade. It's not pursuant to these lights. The entity is engaged in surveillance of my devices, and the entity's pattern of conduct, the delusional psychopaths that monitor my vagina, repeatedly engage in what is ongoing threatening activity while I'm publishing the evidence. Jason Fields and Tracy Banks are going to prison.
Jason Fields was never conducting an investigation. Jason Fields is a serial killer, and so is his 60-plus-year-old sex partner, Tracy Banks, a fake relative, and Jason Fields is a fake friend, and they together conspired with this entity through this system where strangers are stalking, who are demon-possessed, stalking with what are impossible lights that's speaking to targeting, with the whole police department, and you have strangers that conspire in murder of American citizens, i.e. gang stalking. Fields and Banks are going to prison. This is P.O.C. And they're going to prison, and so are terrorists like Hazelwood, Owens, and Mike Lorenz. This is P.O.C. at 6:48 p.m. That's P.O.C. That's Unity, again, obsessive monitoring. The entity's obsession is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and that is no compliment. Obsession, by the way, is demonic, but this is the entity that's exhibiting obsession proven by evidence of stalking. Stalking in the most unheard of and demented ways. This is the entity that is stalking by plane. So this is the P.O.C. I'll go ahead and show you that. Engaging in what is, just like you saw, while they're engaging in cartwheels, stalking as I am walking south on Euclid Avenue, stalking as I'm at the Ontario Town Square, coming from the Ovid Family Community Library, stalking by planes. As I cross Hope Boulevard, the entity is stalking by plane, progressing south down Euclid Avenue as I progress south down Euclid Avenue. And the entity's engaging in what is flying over the top of my head, like I documented the other day, at Nevada and Euclid Avenue, while the entity is again engaging in what is conduct with regard to keeping the evidence under surveillance, stalking as a population, which is what you'll see. You'll see a third party. He runs from the Ontario City Hall, by the way, to get in the path as I am going to foreseeably use my device, which these demons who are walking their dogs in impossible light, who do the same thing under a fake sun, who do the same thing, which is criminal surveillance, while they don't talk to you, you don't know them, and they're engaging in the pattern of conduct with the government that's clearly deviating from the legitimate operations of the airport, while I'm showing you that pattern of conduct, and it's directly tethered to the pattern of conduct by those who are demons. Number one is what you need to know about this entity gang stalking, and that they're engaging in criminal surveillance, which is under no circumstances subtle. It's not veiled. It's not concealed under any circumstances, and the entity is doing so while I am publishing the video onto YouTube. Okay, the entity's engaging in psychopathic pacing, the flying in circles by the helicopter, the repeated flight over a senior citizen complex by plane, and then doing so with regard to what is ongoing conduct of the people of the state who are sharing in them, okay? This is the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking and furtherance of murder, while the federal government is maintaining, the federal government's engaged in gang stalking. I'm prosecuting the government that's engaging in that pattern of conduct. The federal government is going to be prosecuted for what the city of Ontario, that's the state of California, is committing against me. The federal government conspired against my life. Jason Fields is not an investigator. Jason Fields is fully engaged in what is conspiring my murder, acting with Tracy Banks, with whom he has a conflict in and of itself with regard to having any engagement in what are the court hearings, with regard to what is having personal involvement with that which concerns me, my property. He also is conflicted by virtue of having any sort of knowledge of me personally. He's conflicted. It's showing a conflict of interest, but I also want to be clear, this is somebody that's clearly conflicted based on the criminal purposes that Jason Isaac Fields maintains. He remains the person that is benefiting from what would be the conspiracy to murder me, having maintained a manufactured marriage to me. I've never married anyone, and I certainly have not married him, and I would never marry him. I would not even go on a date. I will not maintain any conversation with him, and I publish that information for a reason on this podcast. He's going to federal prison. This is somebody that's been engaged in targeting me and was fully, very passionately, and facilitating the ongoing targeting that I'm documenting. And this is somebody that wants to try to now maintain some sort of it's actually not appearing any different. This is still gang stalking. You're talking about what is the entity that will refer to themselves as investigating. Jason Isaac Fields was never investigating. He knows that I'm not mentally ill. He knows that we were never married. He knows that I would never give him any money. He knows that we've never been engaged in any conversation about money and property. He knows that I'm not aware that he was having sex with my mother. He knows that I would not be his friend and be hanging out with him if he was interested in having sex with 60-plus-year-old women that are related to me. He knows that I have never introduced him and my mother, which is, again, Tracy Banks, who is, again, a questionable, a dubious character with regard to what is her true relationship with me. Perhaps a blood relative, but not a mother figure. This is somebody that's engaged in criminal conduct. This is, again, knowledge that Jason Isaac Fields would have with regard to his long-term sexual relationship and inherent conflict with how he has represented himself as it relates to my property, while I'm not coincidentally being targeted by the government, who is still to date engaging in that, and he would like to maintain a position that he's been engaged in an investigation and he has not. In fact, this is not an investigation. This is why the Ontario Police feel so free to engage in what is very obvious targeting. That does not serve their purposes. It doesn't serve the people of the state that are going to be prosecuted by it. And it certainly does not serve Jason Isaac Fields' purposes with regard to what is my proof that he's been targeting. In the same way that it's obvious that the Ontario Police are targeting. But this is the entity that's engaging in that, and that's relevant to the impunity of this entity. Why are they still stalking at the Ovitt Family Community Library? These are demons that are engaged in witchcraft. These are demons that are engaged in surveillance. So there's no secret with regard to who's investigating what and who. That impunity is not only relevant to mental illness, it's relevant to what is an entity that is misrepresenting itself. Jason Fields was never conducting any lawful investigation, by the way. The investigation with regard to a corrupt government is synonymous with what it's targeting. He's a stalker. He's a stalker that then, when he's suspicious of being found out, is claiming, oh, I've been investigating the whole time. This is somebody that's engaged in what is threatening my life on an ongoing basis. While I document him on the internet, the Ontario Police begin flying in circles over my head. He is conspiring my murders as of 2018 as a matter of documentation, stealing everything that I own, having sex with Tracy Banks with regard to thinking that I would care or that it would hurt my feelings because he's practicing witchcraft and he's mentally ill. And this is somebody that is engaging in what is theft of everything that I own, knowledge that he should not have but for targeting me and abusing a position in government, okay, a corrupt federal official. That's why you have Securitas gang stalking me. That's why you have the Ontario International Airport gang stalking me. That's why you have the Ontario Police Department gang stalking me. That's why you have demons on the venue of the internet who feel free enough. They don't see any sort of way in which I'm going to hunt you down with the arm of the federal law and put you in prison for stealing my intellectual property, which is also relevant to the fact that you are a part of this surveillance system and furtherance of murder, which is underway on the internet. It's a means of obstructing justice. It's a means of keeping me living in a bubble so that nobody knows that I'm being targeted in Ontario and the Ontario Police Department are trying to kidnap and murder me, which they have been compensated to do, paid by people like Tracy Banks and Jason Fields, who is not capable of playing any sort of double dutch. You're not engaging with his gang stalking and then trying to flip the script and change the narrative. Oh, I'm investigating and now I'm doing justice and I'm exposing what Tracy Banks has been doing against her daughter the whole time and I'm exposing this secret and I'm telling that information. No, this is a demon that has been from the outset targeting me. I just want to be clear, he's not different. He's like every other entity, every other actor within this entity. He's been gang stalking me, like I stated, since 2003 when he was targeting me at Valley College, San Bernardino Valley College, where he was no investigator then, and he was gang stalking me under the fake sun at that corrupt institution. And he was gang stalking me with the same people of the state. The reason why he even got a position with the government is to target me. This is gang violence that Jason Isaac Fields is engaged in, and he's going to federal prison because of the entity that is targeting me and threatening my life, stalking me in a library. Absurd with regard to the level of instability. And even describing that, and that's the truth, it's a fact. They're stalking, and there's psychopaths pacing all around, just like they are outside. They're pacing in planes and helicopters and in vehicles, and they're all stalking me, and they're all listening to me. And while I upload the evidence about this criminal system that I remain subject to, the entity engages in moral harassment and terrorism, stalking with impossible light. Strangers that are not strangers who are in fact betting on my death. That's also why Fields is going to prison. This is relevant to the impunity that I remain subject to. Fields is not going to drop off a check in my mailbox and then get away with targeting me for years, trying to murder me for years. With every kidnapping that the Ontario Police, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court have committed in furtherance of murder, profiting with Tracy Banks and Jason Fields. You cannot do both, and it is very clear what is his conflict, and it's also very clear the ways in which he has failed, patently failed, in trying to change the narrative regarding what is his role, what is his position, what has been his criminal objective at the outset. He is not an investigator. He's not investigating anything. There was never a lawful investigation of myself under any circumstances. His sex life, which is evidence of severe mental instability, is relevant to why he is interested in taking my life, targeting me, and abusing a position that he has in doing so. For whatever reason, sex with Tracy Banks results in people trying to take my life, people that are in positions that they abuse. This is what is exactly the circumstances surrounding Jason Isaac Fields' involvement. I want to be clear, leadership in trying to murder me. This little, excuse my French, this little piss ant who is the same age as Tracy Banks' son, and she's having sex with him, okay? And he's at the forefront of trying to get away with, like, he's some sort of mastermind. He's not a genius, he's an idiot. He's an idiot. He is a barbarian, he's a Neanderthal. He's an ignoramus. Okay? He's a nymphomaniac lacking any self-control and common sense because they are always relying on what is corruption of the government. Corruption of the government doesn't require anything to make any sense. It doesn't require facts to correlate with one another. They make up the facts, they engineer the circumstances, and they get the people to engage in perjurious, bearing false witness, in other words. This is an entity that's engaging in that, and they're doing so while there's supposedly some investigation. The demons that are stalking me on commercial planes are not ignorant about what's all over my social media and what I'm talking about. The impunity of stalking as an airport, the impunity of stalking as a police department, while there's supposedly some investigation, Fields is going under the prison. Okay, and that's if the death magic doesn't take his life first. But I want to be clear, the entity is whoever survives, okay? Because they literally are going to be dropping dead. Because this is an entity that's practicing witchcraft. That's also relevant to the mental illness, the delusional conduct that Jason Fields is still engaging in. This is somebody that is literally stalking me and is engaging what is stalking by proxy, gang stalking, state-sponsored stalking, state-organized stalking, group stalking. And this is someone that's doing so while abusing their position and is also doing so, and there is a history of lying on my character, a history of it. Okay, so I'm not somebody that just decided to become upright and a person that walks with integrity and honest and forthcoming. I've been that person my entire life. And so this is speaking to what's not new regarding me not being any person that even fits the description of what Tracy Banks and Jason Fields at the forefront of defaming my character with the help of stalkers of the Ontario Police Department who put on the internet that they've accomplished what is arresting Erica Lorraine Spencer for X, Y, and Z crime. And X, Y, and Z crime never happened, including sleeping in violation at the bus stop in violation of the municipal code. And why is that? Because Jason Fields and Tracy Banks in the state of California have been engaged in targeting me, including at the workplace. This is relevant to the greater pattern of conduct, and this is also why you're going to prison. Because when they falsely arrest you and you do not go to those court hearings, which are criminal acts against you, you're not getting heard regarding what is an unlawful arrest, which is kidnapping. You're not going into the substance of the pattern of conduct, meaning they've been targeting, and that wasn't even a lawful arrest in the first place, and I'm sleeping at the bus stop because they were targeting me at my job when I'm practicing law in 2018. When I'm engaged in property management in 2018 and 2019, and I am forced to resign because I'm subject to terrorism, which is having a direct impact on my economic standpoint, the ability to pay my car note, the ability to pay for rent anymore. In other words, not be on the street. That has nothing to do with mental illness, as Tracy Banks and Jason Fields are gang stalking me with this entity and relying on that criminal activity to defame my character while simultaneously setting up the circumstances to take my life and then blame me for it. That's why they're lying about me being a drug addict, me being a prostitute, me being a child molester, me being married to you and you having some sort of ability to act as any sort of representation over my money and property that this entity, by the way, that is targeting me knows about, and I don't. This is the entity that's engaging in that level of impunity. It's directly relevant to what is Jason Isaac Fields and the city of Ontario, that's the state of California. This is Tracy Banks, delusional, sitting up, again, a psychopath that I was documenting very heavily at Woodside Senior Apartments, and then had the audacity to commit kidnapping at that venue. And then the fake son is never over Woodside Senior Apartments again. It's never at the Ontario Airport Inn apartment. It's not going to be, hotel over the 10 freeway when it's rising and setting at Tracy Banks' apartment, number 51. Look at the evidence. The entity is, the evidence of the fake son is relevant to an entity that's engaging in what is stalking as a whole population, a whole group effort by the city, by that state, which the P.O.C. establishes. So you have what is ongoing criminal monitoring and the entity that's maintaining what is a pattern of conduct, and you have terrorists who are psychopaths. Psychopaths engaging in what is some sort of, like, as though anyone is going to be fooled, because you're not. And I'm not referring about to these demons who are acting with regard to an alternate universe. The evidence that I already have on the record and the evidence regarding what Jason Fields and Tracy Banks and this entity maintaining a whole situation in the background while I'm maintaining this case in chief, this ongoing investigation of the U.S. government targeting me, trying to kill me, and then get away with stealing my money and property. Okay, the entities in the background maintaining ongoing court hearings and I'm not present, claiming that I'm missing when I've been kidnapped. The entity engaging in what is trying to establish me on paper as somebody that is highly unstable, and my life's practices and patterns are highly inconsistent. And so this makes for what is the literally the formula for taking that person's life who's being gang stalked. And you know nothing about it because the entity is suppressing my evidence on YouTube, on the internet, stealing my intellectual property, profiting from it as though it's some sort of joke, as though it's some sort of just creative endeavor that has no serious substance to it. This is the entity that's engaging in that while they are simultaneously in the background, tracking me down and stalking me like animals on a daily basis. Fields has not been engaging in any investigation, and no investigation is lasting for 7 years. Fields is not engaged in any investigation, and there is no investigation that you are conducting as a federal government combined with what is a substantive value, the wealth of the P.O.C., where there's any reasonable question about what's going on. Fields has been engaged in targeting and is still targeting, and is doing so with the hopes that murder, because that's what it is by definition under the law, any loss, any harm to me is a product of malicious conduct, intentional conduct, conspiracy to commit that act. There are no accidents upon the P.O.C. There's no acts of negligence upon the P.O.C. And when you are stalking as a police department, that is criminal activity that is reasonably resulting in what is a loss of life. So you can reasonably anticipate that your life is going to be taken when the police, which the Ontario police are, not just the Ontario police, the Fontana police, the Rancho Cucamonga police, that's San Bernardino County Sheriff, the Pomona police, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and the Los Angeles Police Department. You have what is the Montclair Police, the Azusa Police Department. You have what are the Colton Police Department, kidnapping, as I'm subject to kidnapping by the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, pursuant to criminal defamation of this entity. And guess who's making the arrest, i.e. kidnapping? The same stalkers that you are listening to stalking me in helicopter, claiming that, there is physical assault and battery. I'm attacking this demon that's gang stalking me, Tracy Banks. And of course, that has to be the case in order for you to commit kidnapping under the Welfare and Institutions Code. And you are relying on the Welfare and Institutions Code because you're trying to directly rebut the evidence of you stalking me as my evidence reflects on the internet. That same evidence that this same entity that is gang stalking is stealing on the internet. And you're not stealing the targeted individual's intellectual property and not aware that they're being gang stalked. In fact, that is a part of the gang stalking system. Gang stalking is revealing what is criminal surveillance. The entity is stealing the intellectual property of the one whom they are keeping under surveillance in furtherance of murder. That's occurring on the internet. YouTube is engaged in that pattern of conduct, and so are venues like TikTok, who, by the way, are headquartered in Los Angeles. A documented terrorist, knowing exactly who I am, knowing the significance of not suppressing my evidence, which is going to expose terrorists like the LAPD, who commit murder and just flip on their sirens to get away with it, and then claim that they're investigating until the attention dies down, and then you go on to the next ongoing occurrence that they're maintaining while they're engaged in surveillance. This is the P.O.C. Jason Isaac Fields is engaged in what is criminal monitoring in furtherance of murder, and this is a demon that's engaging in trying to slow down the process of what is exposing this gang stalking system. He is a serial killing vagina. He's a psychopath. He is a serial killer who is engaged in what is raping people. How do you rape someone with regard to using witchcraft? This is someone that thought that through force, and gang stalking is the use of force. Okay? This is the entity that's engaging in what is violence, domestic violence by an entity. That is a form of force. And this is somebody that tried to force himself on me, tried to force what is that which is against my will. I'm not going to associate with you. I'm not going to be in some sex threesome with you and Tracy Banks together. I'm not going to have some relationship with you. I'm not going to lie for you and state that we have any romantic history or that I'm married to you or that I even like you or that I associate with you. I'm not going to do any of that. There is no witchcraft that's going to cause that to come to pass. And there is also no evidence that is going to supersede what is the clear evidence of targeting by the state, gang stalking. And it's directly relevant to who seeks to profit from that. Who is benefiting from what is my demise? Because it's already established that I'm being targeted. The entity is so desperate, that is, the entity is acting with such impunity. That's because Jason Isaac Fields is directly engaged in gang stalking through the city of Ontario. The one that sits at the forefront of profiting off of my money and property, and also while demons are engaging in targeting just like they are now with impunity. Jason Isaac Fields is still engaged in criminal surveillance. He's going to prison. Okay? The mental illness that you hear exhibited through the audible activity in the background, that's relevant to the mentally ill psychopath Jason Fields, who is still stalking and monitoring and thinks that everyone else is a fool and that you're really going to believe that he's an investigator, because he's not, and no one is that foolish. No one. But this is what the entity has conspired to do. This is while the entity wants to engage in what is stalking me and kidnapping me. You are the reason why I'm sleeping at the bus stop, and then you rely on that agency that is stalking me on a daily basis to commit a kidnapping while you are a light-slinging vagina monitor. This is the entity that is highly delusional, forgets about one aspect of what's already on the record, and then engages in another, as though no one is recognizing this is the entity that I'm surrounded by. And they are intellectually, they are in every regard inferior, and they are in every regard surrounded. But I want to make sure that you understand, because Jason Fields, if that death magic, and I want to be clear, there are people that are going to die because of witchcraft that they sent out into the universe. It's not touching me, but he's not only going to prison at whatever point that death magic hits, it doesn't matter. He's going to federal prison because I remain subject, as of 2018, federal group stalking and monitoring. This entity has been conspiring murder. We're going into what is 8 years, okay? And this is an entity that is, again, Tracy Banks. She's engaging in that pattern of conduct as a matter of documentation for what is, as a matter of documentation, 8 years as well. These are demons that are engaging in that. And guess what? Jay Sandoval is going to federal prison for conspiring murder with Jason Fields and Tracy Banks, the state of California, okay? Mike Lorenz, he's going to federal prison for conspiring murder with Tracy Banks and Jason Fields, the state of California. You have what is, Craig Hazelwood, who's going to federal prison for kidnapping in furtherance of murder. He's actually stalking. He's stalking while he's pacing around with engineer light, like Securitas is right now, committing sexual assault and battery, while the entity amplifies train activity that you cannot hear at the Oba Family Community Library, which will not be competing with my voice. That's relevant to audible noise. It's relevant to molestation with engineered light, while the entity is engaged in psychopathic pacing. These are monitoring spirits who are possessing people who are stalking in furtherance of murder, and doing so with a corrupt government that's maintaining criminal surveillance while they have conspired murder against one whom they have stolen money and property and stolen my ID. Now, the entity is engaging in this elaborate criminal scheme with regard to stalking in ways and targeting in ways that you have never heard of, but it is no less criminal. And it is an American citizen subject to it is no less entitled to justice. Jason Isaac Fields is going to prison, and the names that I just stated, and every other kidnapper. That means the demons that are stalking inside of the Oba Family Community Library, why do they have such confidence? Because that's what I'm documenting. It's impunity. But with regard to the American citizen that I'm advocating, why would terrorists who are clearly surrounded by evidence, why would they be so confident? Because that's what they are. While they're pacing around just like they are outside in the engineered environment, why would they have such confidence? It's because Jason Isaac Fields is not investigating. The federal government is not investigating. The federal government is going to be forced to do what it never intended to do. And it's including terrorists like Jason Isaac Fields are going to prison, where he will expire. He's either going to expire before he goes to prison, or he's going to expire in federal prison. And you heard it here first. This is the same with Tracy Banks. These are demons who are still, by the moment, to this moment, and the current time is, by the way, 7:20 p.m. The entity that's gang stalking me, I am in 2026 still publishing evidence of being gang stalked by the government. This is relevant to what are criminals that are on the opposite side of the globe, by the way, who have invested in my demise, who are invested in my being silenced, because this is exposing an international system of surveillance that is underway. It's being hosted in Ontario, California. because I am the one that is being targeted, and this is with regard to what is an international system of targeting I'm an American citizen. But this is happening to people across the globe. This is what is speaking to what is investment with regard to stealing a lot of money. This is why you have an airport that seems to not care less about forfeiting that entire venue, and a lot of people going to prison and being exposed on television and abroad social media. That's because of the size of this criminal conduct, the level of interest and investment in it. That's why you have that ongoing impunity by a whole airport. You're conceding guilt. Why would you do that? Because of the ongoing criminal system that I'm exposing simultaneously. That's relevant to what is impunity of an American citizen who does not have to worry about a whole world of people who are targeting them, and they're doing it in the United States. The United States that's not so different from Russia. The United States that's not so different, actually, from Korea. We're not so different. We're not so different from those that don't have any constitutional rights out in Afghanistan. We're not so different from them while you're being targeted in the United States and living under an illusion that you have privacy, that you have state and federal constitutional rights. That only exists with regard to how it facilitates and perpetuates an ongoing system of surveillance. Okay, that's an illusion that is serving that ongoing necessary appearance of what is some sort of distinction between the United States of America and the rest of the world. It's an illusion. And this system of gang stalking is proof that it is an illusion. And it's directly relevant to what is no legitimate investigation ever. It's 2018. Jason Fields has not been investigating anything. There's nothing to investigate when you have filthy hands, by the way. Your hands are unclean. Your hands have been on my money. Your hands have been exercising authority and some sort of representation when you couldn't even properly spell. Again, I'm always giving these demons a spell test, okay? Because you can't even spell that which you seek to exercise. You can't even spell representation while you would like to seek and represent yourself as being one in that position over me. Somebody that is trained in the law. And even if I don't know what the mechanism is, a conservatorship, I've never heard of that with regard to being over myself. Are you kidding me? How are you accomplishing that? It requires the corruption of the government. Demons like Tracy Banks and Jason Fields. Demons like Tracy Banks who hops on anybody's genitalia, whoever it needs, that needs to be taken down. And that's with regard to what is being a bias in their execution of whatever their duties are. Officers of the court. They're supposed to be those who are officers engaging what is the execution of their duties with regard to law enforcement. And they're not. They're not. You do not have this surveillance, what I'm subject to, strangers that are stalking with impossible light. You have a whole pattern of conduct that's speaking to what is a connection. And the more my evidence shows, that connection is very clear. It's vivid. So you have this level of surveillance, and they don't know in the court that somebody walking in the courtroom isn't me? Yes, they do know that. This is an entity that conspired my murder at the outset. As of 2018, we're going on to year 8 regarding surveillance. There is no investigation of myself. And by the way, you're not investigating me when you're kidnapping me under the municipal code, when you are the reason why I'm forced to resign from my job because I'm being gang stalked at work, which is also not anybody's imagination. It's all over the internet regarding the Los Angeles Police Department targeting me, regarding the Riverside County targeting me in Harupa Valley as a property manager, working in property management. None of this is a figment of anybody's imagination, and the entity seeks to criminally defame everybody that's witnessing the prosecution of the U.S. government. Because that's exactly what they claim. Oh, you're imagining it? This video was imagining it? The entity just disregards the evidence and locks you away, and nobody asks any questions. Based on the entity's pattern of conduct, everybody that's witnessing the ongoing public investigation of the U.S. is mentally ill. Okay, I just want to be clear on that because that's what's relevant with regard to the entity stalking by helicopter. Remember, they're stalking now. They engage in what is a ritual, satanic behavior, which is relevant to terrorism. You want to engage in your satanic behavior, you're terrorizing me, and I'm going to prosecute you for that as well. It's also relevant to the ways in which Michael LORENZ is going to be diagnosed mentally as a terrorist leader, and this pattern of conduct is underway under his corrupt leadership, which he's not ignorant of. You're not ignorant of a pattern of conduct that's underway by your department, especially when that pattern of conduct is underway throughout the state of California, which is confirmed and reiterated by the Los Angeles Police Department, by the Fontana Police Department, by the Pomona Police Department, and I can continue. Because every city that I drive into, every county that I drive into, Costa Mesa, Orange County Sheriff, San Diego Police, San Diego County Sheriff, this is the entity that's sharing that pattern of conduct. You're not ignorant while that pattern of conduct is underway. And I've litigated this already. This is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct. And you're talking about 7, now 8 years into what is an investigation. What is the question? You don't have a question, especially when you're stealing my intellectual property on the internet and even trying to profit from that while you're stealing my identity. This is an entity that doesn't want to give me my money and also is delusional when you're looking at all this evidence and you're going to somehow rob me of my money and nobody's going to know that you're the one that's been targeting me the whole time. Any robbery, any loss of $1, Mike LORENZ is going to prison for it. The entity that is Alan D. WAPNER stalking by planes, they're going to federal prison for it. The demons inside of the Open Family Committee in the library that are targeting as an entity, psychopaths, pacing in and out, engaging in what is targeting while you don't want to pay money and property that belongs to me that you were paid. You were paid to gang stalk me as an airport. You were paid to gang stalk me as a police department. This is an entity that's engaging in that as though no one is going to put those dots together. You know what you're looking at and what you're listening to. That's the ongoing audible activity. In other words, that's the ongoing admission to theft of my money by the Ontario International Airport. That's the ongoing admission by a terrorist that's flying a commercial plane representing every other gang stalking airline who have conspired my murder, having stolen my money, having received money that belongs to me, having received what is money and property, having been, in other words, incentivized to target me. Knowing exactly who I am. And you also know who I am when I'm not the one walking in that courtroom and you're acting like I'm some mentally ill person that's in the courtroom that you are confirming under some conservatorship or power of attorney. The entity that is stalking me by plane and helicopter knows very well who I am and where I'm at. I'm never missing while I'm subject to this pattern of conduct. That's the same government that's stalking me by commercial plane, doing so while you are seeking to avoid giving me what you are going to give. And not only are you giving me all my money with interest, you're going to prison. These demons that are stalking with these airlines, there's no mystery here. Everybody that's hopping into these planes and hopping at the heliport and then hopping in the helicopters, they're going to prison. They are going to federal prison. In addition to what is Mike LORENZ is going to prison as a terrorist leader, not different from Osama bin Laden. Terrorist leaders go to prison in the United States if you're not already shot down by the United States government, who does not negotiate with terrorists. Now, the United States government is engaging in terrorism with those abroad, betraying American citizens. This is that entity that has done so, and they do so for large amounts of money. They do so with regard to what the city of Ontario is doing, not for, like I stated, this is not for $200,000. This is for millions upon millions of dollars. And everybody thinking that they have a stake. Even these little brokies like Shanita Ramaya McLean having sex for free. Okay, having sex with the whole neighborhood, having sex with the same people as my so-called mom. That's how sick they are. Okay, and they'll do it for $2,500. But the government is targeting those that are worth what are, you're talking about a tremendously large amount of what is money and property combined. And this is something that the entity is targeting me for. And this entity is on the venue of the internet. This entity is watching me publish this evidence, exposing them online. This entity is surveilling me while they have me on the dark web. They sit around on the opposite side of the world, masturbating, having sex with kids, engaging in what is group sex while they watch me, which this entity, Jason Itafils, Tracy Banks, Los Angeles Police Department, gang stalking me in my apartment while they're watching me nude on the internet, on the dark web. This is relevant to what the entity is doing, including stalking by the Ontario International Airport, who is admittedly engaging what is conspiring my murder while they are stalking in this path. This is the entity that doesn't have any strategy. This is an entity that does not have any plan and never considered the fact that you're going to be engaging in this conduct before the whole world, which, by the way, is automatically the end of your so-called plot. But the entity that is, again, delusional, the entity that is in denial, the entity that is desperate, that's a threat to your life as an American citizen, will continuously engage in that while they lack any other strategy. What else do we do? Because we can't just sit here and watch this American citizen expose what we're doing. We can't just sit there, so we're just going to continuously engage in what is stalking them, even though it's in front of the whole world. That's literally what they're doing. You are not going to steal $1 from me in secret. You're not going to steal $1, and you're also not going to steal $1 from me in secret. You're engaging in that while you're witnessing, looking at your ongoing exposure in real time. Let me show you right here. This is an entity that's stalking, hovering over the Ontario City Hall. And they're doing so, I want to be clear, at 7:30 p.m. I just want to be clear, the entity is very much triggered when you're talking about what they're not going to do, and they are not going to steal $1. You're also not taking off over the 280 North Limit Apartments. This is a senior citizen complex. There are zoning provisions where this is automatically unlawful. It's also relevant to what is clear evidence of targeting. It's occurring with regard to knowledge of everything that I'm stating, criminal surveillance, where the entity is stalking in this manner, hovering over my head, for example, at Nevada and Euclid Avenue, where I am south of this location. I am that direction, south of this location where the entity is hovering over me, and there's no takeoff here. There's no takeoff which would be east of the Ontario City Hall. That's University of Laverne. There's no takeoffs over the law school. There's no takeoffs over the City Hall. There are no takeoffs anywhere in this area, actually, because the airport is south of Holt Boulevard. And if you're looking at a map, the entity is necessarily psychopathic, obsessively stalking. These are demons who are engaging in what is criminal activity upon exposure to the world. This is what the Ontario Police Department are doing as well. They failed in their murder contract. Okay? You have a psychopath sitting here stalking in the dark, sitting on a Securitas golf cart, engaged in sexual assault and battery, and now is remaining engaged in criminal presence in the path. And doing so in the engineered light. Here's my shadow projected here. Here's my shadow projected over here. Here's my shadow on the floor here, where the entity is listening to me and then engaging in what are criminal elements of monitoring, which is stalking under the Constitution. It's stalking, and it's stalking, criminal surveillance, monitoring, doing so in furtherance of murder. And you're not stealing $1 while you're gang stalking in front of the world. You're not stealing $1 anonymously either. You're not stealing $1 from me while you're still gang stalking, and the evidence that you've been stalking and targeting with the purpose of trying to get away with murder is already online. Let me show you this. This is what the entity is doing over here, stalking. There's no takeoffs over here. So this is where this is P.O.C. I just want you to see that. That audible activity is demonic. It's not the sound of the plane. That's the entity that's engaging in while they're listening to me. And they're engaging in a cartwheel now because I'm honing in on where they're quote unquote taking off from. The airport is south of Holt Boulevard. You're not engaging in anything other than stalking over here. And it's very obvious also when I'm at Nevada and Euclid Avenue and they're flying over the top of my head while I'm walking through the neighborhood. This is the entity that's engaging in stalking while they've invested in my murder as a police department and as an airport. The Ontario International Airport, the Ontario International Board, the Ontario Executive Team. I'm going to prosecute the government. Terrorists are going to prison and they're being deported. People like Otif El-Kadi, if he's not a natural-born citizen, he is witnessing what is the basis to deport him out of this country as a terrorist. That's actually engaged in criminal surveillance, not a CEO of a so-called airport that's engaged in stalking me, and so is every airline. This is an entity, like I stated before, and is triggered by the truth that I'm speaking. Because you're not stealing $1 anonymously. You're not going to steal $1 while you're gang stalking. You're not keeping the money that you already stole either. And you're going to prison for stalking in planes and helicopters while you're simultaneously being diagnosed. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, this is the entity stalking by planes. I'm going to upload that. This is the entity that's engaging in this pattern of conduct since 2026, and the entity is not slowing down with regard to criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder. There is nothing legitimate regarding the Ontario International Airport that's engaging in stalking and plane after plane, engaging in what are cartwheels, flying forward and then flying back in the opposite direction as I capture what is hovering over the College of Laverne University, University of Laverne College of Law. And the entity is engaging in what is, again, all that demon did was make a U-turn and flew right back around, hovering over the same senior citizen complex. This is the entity that's engaging in that stalking. This is relevant to the entity that's not engaging in any investigation. What's relevant is that terrorists like Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks are indeed going to federal prison. This is the system. This is the animal that they unleash on American citizens, and the entity thought that they could engage in that against myself, that which they commit against American citizens who do not have any defense. They don't have any evidence. They don't have any proof. And as you also see, even in the face of that ongoing investigation, you're going to federal prison by virtue of the nature of the crime. You're going to federal prison. Okay, by virtue of a population stalking somebody, and who is seeking to, and who has already established themselves as being me, who stole my identity, who engaged in what is making up a marriage to me on paper, who engaged in what is kidnapping me, making up criminal charges as to why you were putting handcuffs on me while you are stalking under all circumstances, who's engaging in what is exercising that is fictitious authority while the entity is clearly targeting in the way that the airport is exhibiting right now with impunity. And then later you engage in what is targeting while you're wearing a police uniform and a badge. This is the entity that's engaging in that conduct and that level of imbalanced conduct. That's why you're going to prison. Okay, that's P.O.C. The more that the entity is triggered, these are demons, the more that they engage in that conduct. This is the entity that's going to prison. Jason Fields is going to federal prison, and that's what I want you to make sure that you recognize, because Fields is going to prison for what he conspired as a corrupt military officer. This is the federal government that thinks that they can manipulate the circumstances of your life. They can depict you in any manner that they want, and that's because of the position that they hold, because of the money that they stole, because it's not, I'm not going to say money that they have. Jason Isaac Fields is a brokey from the west side of San Bernardino. Him and his ancestors, the people that he's related to, they're broke government recipients. They're criminals. All right, you're talking about alcoholics and drug addicts. He comes from the gutter, and I'm just going to be honest with that. That's why he is an adult abusing a position. You can't take somebody that's trash like that and then put them in that position and think that they're going to do well with it. This is nothing other than a thug that is engaged in what is theft. Theft by public corruption, and the ongoing obvious targeting by an airport that has no flights from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, hovering over the law school of Laverne, hovering over the 280 North Limit, a senior citizen complex, hovering over the senior center. These are old people that are necessarily zoned in an environment that's going to be quaint and peaceful, and the entities flying, hovering over the roof of their apartment complex. The same thing, by the way, that I was documenting at Woodside Senior Apartments. The same thing that I was documenting at Alvarado Gardens, where my residents, those demons that were gang stalking me that I'm prosecuting, they're all going to prison. Because that's a small complex. You have over 60 units. They're going to prison for what I documented in concert with LAPD. 24-hour surveillance and further into murder. You think you're going to gang stalk the property manager? You're going to prison. And that's exactly what the city of Ontario is doing right here, hovering where there are no flights. And that's very clear. That's also not a controversy in the courtroom. And it's also relevant to what I'm talking about at the moment that I'm discussing it in the engineer light, where the fake sun rises and sets, where the entity is stalking by helicopter, where the entity is engaged in criminal summoning, pursuant to detailed knowledge about me and my vagina. You are not stealing $1 from me, and you're not stealing $1 from me anonymously. Everyone knows exactly what you're doing and what you've been doing, and there has been no investigation for the past 7 years. My documentation starts in 2018. What are they investigating? While I'm documenting the pattern of conduct and you're claiming that I disappeared and you don't know where I'm at, the entity was engaged in kidnapping. San Bernardino County Sheriff from Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court. Venues where I'm showing you a fake sun is remaining over me. And at what point in the day in the natural environment is the sun rising and setting at Ovid, where the city of Ontario is stalking right now? And they are going to, again, I want to be clear, the demons, the gang stalking immigrants at Economy Inn are going to want to hide behind the city of Ontario. Oh, help me pay these bills, hire counsel, defend me in court, and the city of Ontario is putting them in prison and having them subject to deportation if they are in fact immigrants. Because you're going to serve your time in prison and then you're getting deported. And I want to be clear, the entity is engaging in that, and no one's forgetting the ongoing blatant stalking that you're engaging in 1 second. The ongoing psychopathic pacing over that by helicopter over that motel where the fake sun rises and sets, and that's competing with the fake sunrise and set at the Ovid Family Community Library. And don't forget the sunrise and set at Tracy Banks Woodside Senior Apartments at Unit 51. And don't forget about the entity keeping the fake sun from 7 a.m. to after 5 p.m., which is tantamount to sunrise and sunset documentation, duration of time analysis there, while I'm at Ontario Airport Inn, one that I'm documenting as of 2025, just to throw in to show you what is the pattern of conduct. I can, with my eyes closed, show you that these are not only demons that they're stalking, and they've lost in what is trying to conspire the murder of someone that you are obviously stalking, that will never help in what you will want to establish in court, that you're not guilty of the crime. You're literally stating, yeah, I am guilty of the crime. Yeah. That's literally what you're doing. You're conceding, you're admitting to it. While you are stalking as an airport, that's the entire entity. The entity is engaged in this criminal conduct in Ontario, in California, with regard to what is international. That's why you're being disbanded as a police department. That's why Fields is going to prison. Because that impunity of stalking as an airport and incriminating the old people in the apartment complex, incriminating the city of Ontario, the Paul Leon, a gang stalking mayor who's being removed from office, the Ovid Family Community Library, a gang stalking venue, all they're doing is pacing inside psychopaths. Pacing in and out of doorways, pacing in engineer light, pacing while they hold their hands of their kids because they think, oh, she referenced children, so I'm going to hold the hands of these kids while we're pacing all around. That's literally what's in their minds. In the same way that the entity is obviously stalking with planes, that's what they do. As you document them, they'll engage in it in the manner. And like I stated before, while the entity wants to expose its mental illness and how I am literally dictating what they do as they do it, okay? That's what the entity does with regard to having sex with kids. You like to have sex with children, they have sex with children on the internet, they exploit children, and in the same way that I dictate what they do, understand that they're doing that as well. Understand while they're blatantly stalking me in planes and helicopters, they're also keeping my vagina under surveillance. That same detailed knowledge. You're not ignorant about who's walking in the courtroom, acting like me. You know exactly who I am. You know exactly where I'm located. That's why you're stalking with impossible lighting. You're not conducting an investigation for 7+ years. There's nothing to investigate. It's very much clear what I established on my own. This is an entity that's stalking by companies, stalking by neighborhoods. This is an entity that's stalking with a whole fake environment. The environment isn't even naturally occurring. The environment is focused on me, what I do as I do it. And that's letting you know with regard to what is very real, which is demonic, which is Satan, who is a spirit. People who are gang stalking are demon possessed. And they surmise that they can maintain a whole international syndicate around the world, which they have been doing for a long time. And so, yes, it does take an extraordinary skill set, an extraordinary person to expose that. But this is very much that. They've been exposed. And so what are they doing now? You're just gratuitously stalking? Obviously. Who is that? How is that helping Mike Lorenz and Alan D. Wapner and El Qadi at the so-called CEO? It's not helping them at all. You're going to prison. I'm going to prosecute you with regard to what is the criminal conduct that you are reasonably knowledgeable of. It's not going to work in court. Oh, I didn't know about that. I don't know about UPS dipping and diving over the apartment and terrorizing the target. I don't know anything about that, about Southwest Airlines showing a pattern of conduct of stalking the target individual on the 10 freeway in Los Angeles at Planet Fitness, at the Ontario Town Square, at a very heavily documented pattern of that particular. I don't know anything about that. I don't know when they're flying off and from the terminals, and I don't know whether they're engaging in what is just, doing cartwheels in the sky in the middle of the city. I don't know. I don't know if they're landing on people's homes and then just doing U-turns and changing their mind about not continuing with flights. I don't know. I don't know any of that. You're going to be prosecuted. This is an entity that's going to be prosecuted with regard to the same level of knowledge, the same level of responsibility that not only do they actually have, but that you reasonably have. You're going to be prosecuted for criminal conduct that you are responsible for based on what your reasonable knowledge, your responsibilities are. Because this is how this system of corruption operates. And I just want to be clear, it's all going to what is Fields and Banks who are going to prison. You're not going to drop a check off in the mail and then I'm subject to that. The ordinary target individual is who you're always considering, the one that doesn't have the evidence, the one that does not have the skill set, the one that cannot represent themselves or anyone else. You are not dropping off a check in the mail, and then you're just going to keep me under surveillance so that you can murder me whenever I fly off or go to cash my check or something. Neither is there any separation between what is you clearly targeting the entire time as though you're going to go off and you're going to steal $1 and nobody's going to know. Nobody knows. It's a secret. Nobody knows that we're the one. They're delusional. They are delusional. As delusional as me getting you on video, stalking me again on helicopter. What is Craig Hazelwood doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? He's pacing like these demons in planes. He's going into a mental asylum. He's going to be subject to a battery of tests, and I am not exaggerating. This is their mental illness that they're not hiding anymore. Neither is their corruption hidden. You're going to be subject to mental examinations. I cannot make that clearer. Nobody cares that you're mad about it. No one cares. What people care about is the fact that they don't want to be subject to this. They're looking at how you are acting like you're rabbit boo crazy. And while you're more overexposed, you're not even secretly doing it anymore. So what, pray tell, do you think you're accomplishing in front of the whole world, including the federal government, that's going to be forced to put you where you belong? You belong in cages, where animals and sickos dig in their pants and they eat their own poo. Because that's exactly what you look like, pacing all around me, stalking. That's exactly what you resemble. That's exactly what you are. And you're not stealing $1 from me. You're delusional. You're imagining things that are never going to happen. You are imagining it. You're imagining that stalking as a whole police department is going to magically end up in being in your favor. You're imagining it. And you know why? Because you're in denial. Because you are going to prison and you know it. And you're going to prison and you're not getting out. And your family justly suffers. Your family and those connected to you, they justly suffer for criminal conduct that you and they share in. Because everybody knows the demons gang stalking in Ontario, them and all the demons that they're related to are sharing in that criminal pattern of conduct. But I want to be clear, it's not just you who are going to be subject to this prosecution. You who are losing your positions, you who are losing your companies, you who are going to write me a check so fat that that company's not going to survive, you who are going to be known as terrorists in this country are being deported and nobody related to you or associated with you is coming into this country, you who are going to federal prison and you're not getting out, you who are losing custody of your children and you're not getting them back either because of what you are. And it's known what you are. You establish the case regarding the threat that you pose to those who are vulnerable, such as children, such as the elderly. They can't speak for themselves. They aren't quite sure about what's going on, and they can't protect themselves from you. You've established the case. I'm going to prosecute you in every area of law. This is the entity that's engaging in that sort of conduct in front of everyone. Because you are imagining that you're going to steal $1 from me, that you're going to somehow swoop in and take my money, that somehow after all of that witchcraft you engage in, and I'm still doing perfectly fine, prosecuting and litigating up a storm all over the internet, and you stalking me in helicopter on yet another day, and everybody forgot what Craig Hazelwood's, everybody knows what his badge number is. Say it with me, 21167, he's going to prison. So is Owens. These unstable psychopaths pacing around in the middle of the night, taking out their anger and rage on me because you're a vagina-monitoring psychopath, a light slinger, a gargoyle, a pedophile, a psychopath, a demon. They're not normal human beings. These are demon-possessed people. They died a long time ago. This is justice that is coming on time. That's also relevant to what is no legitimate investigation, to ongoing delusional and incriminating conduct, because no sane person and no sane entity, no sane collection of people that are anticipating very severe consequences engages in this course of conduct. No one does that. You have kids that you don't want to lose. You have a job that you need. You have what is a residency in this country, citizenship that you don't want to lose, that you don't want to forfeit. Oh, you don't want to go to prison, right? Okay, you don't want to be seen as a terrorist that's never going to be able to wield a weapon, let alone be in law enforcement. You don't want to go to prison for that, but yet the P.O.C. persists regarding money that you're not getting. You're not getting it. You're not getting it. Not only are you not getting the money, you're going to pay me money. You've cost a lot of other people money. All of it is coming to me with interest. And you're going to prison. That is not within your imagination. While these fools are stalking in commercial planes, that is direct evidence, not circumstantial. Direct evidence of the entire city of Ontario stalking. And it is direct evidence, I just want to be clear, with regard to a pattern of conduct committed in furtherance of murder, because everyone is aware, the federal prosecution in the courtroom where there will be no controversy because this case has already been litigated by myself on the venue of the internet before the world. This is no controversy regarding the ongoing repeated kidnappings that the Ontario International Airport has shared in, starting with Jason Knighton in 2020, Jason Knighton and Lester Keys and Melnick. Stalking at the 7-Eleven, where there are also no planes that are taken off. And by the way, that's down yonder, where they're stalking right here. The image, which you can see on my website, this is the POC.wordpress.com, regarding the kidnapping, case number Mary Wendy Victor 2000640, where you will see the image of a demon flying a commercial plane hovering over 636 North Vine Avenue, a 7-Eleven, where there are also no planes taken off. And it is inexplicable, that low elevation. And it's catching my attention because it's amplified plane activity, which is why I took a picture of it based on the pattern of behavior that these demons engage in when then they engage in what is putting their hands on me. That's battery by Jason Knighton and Lester Keys, who also damaged my property. Just like what C. Hazelwood, they have a pattern of that. And because these are demons that engage in bullying. They bully people that don't have evidence. They bully people that they think don't have any rights unless they recognize them, unless they make them up. And I got news for you. You're going to prison for that. You're going to federal prison where terrorists belong. And the Ontario International Airport is a documented kidnapper. That's also why they're being shut down. You're not going to remain as a successful airline company. Everyone knows that you engaged in the conspiracy to murder an American citizen, and I documented it. They also know that you also are committing murder in places like in Kentucky. They also know that while I speak to and refer to terrorists and murderers like UPS, UPS is heavily engaged in what is conspicuously stalking me so that you see that logo. while they, again, are speaking to the fact that, yeah, they did commit that murder, and yeah, they do know that I'm speaking about it, and yeah, they are gang stalking and furtherance of murder. That's what you're deducing. That's what you're picking up. That's what you're extracting, while the terrorists tell you exactly what they are. And that's the entity that's stalking by commercial plane, providing direct evidence against every aspect, every facet of this entity. The police are being disbanded. Mike Lorenz is going to prison. Every kidnapper like Owens and C. Hazel committing the latest kidnapping on December 19, 2025, and have the audacity to refer to that which you don't have any authority under while you're engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. That is not why these laws are created. But that's why I want to be clear, criminal surveillance by these gang stalking police departments, that is why it's created. So that they have a body of what are statutes that they can draw from when they're committing criminal activity. Okay? That's the entity that's engaged in that. Listen to it, that's 7:51 p.m. This is the entity that's engaging in kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department. Julia Gu, Ronald Leverage. Just want you to hear that point activity. Okay, the domestic enemies include Julia Gu, Ronald Leverage, Kurt Hagman, Alan D. Wapner, Jim Bowman, who are engaged in what are criminal surveillance, are very much aware of every plane that's flying, deviating from any sort of legitimate operations of the airport to target me where I'm at. And it's also not a coincidence that I'm showing you that's where the engineer light is present, that's where the fake sun is present, and not just present over me, but it's present as a matter of evidence from sunrise until sunset, which is evidence of targeting in the first place. And it's also directly relevant to the mental illness of those who are stalking using commercial planes. In addition to the fact that they're stalking in front of everybody. Gang stalking is never supposed to be committed in the public. It's never supposed to be happening in front of everyone. That's the entity that's also mentally ill. This is the entity that's engaging in what is this ongoing level of obvious criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder, and you're doing so as though no one is going to know who did it and what happened. You have not been conducting an investigation. Jason Isaac Fields is not conducting an investigation. Jason Isaac Fields is going to prison. This is how delusional this psychopath is. You're talking about a trail of victims. Okay, train probably came out for a reason. This is a sex offender, a rapist. All right, and this is somebody that's engaging in what is group sex. So that came out for a reason. I just want to be clear on that. But a trail of victims. You have the entity that's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and you're engaging in what is targeting me. And this level of impunity, as no matter what happens, you still are convincing yourself you're going to get away with it. No matter how much evidence, you still convincing yourself that you're going to get away with it. That's speaking to how many people before me. How many? Look at the impunity, this delusional conduct by a whole airport. Because I'm going to publish, and I'm still going to publish the evidence, putting it on the internet. They, of their own volition, very foolishly, stalking me, chasing me down with commercial planes while I'm walking to Economy Inn the other night. And then I put it on the internet. How do they look? Okay? How do they look when, in other words, you look guilty, okay? Like you've been looking guilty for a long time. This is an entity that engages in that does not think about the consequences, and they get up, still targeting delusional, demon-possessed people, mentally ill, national security threat, while you are engaging in that conduct, and every ounce of it goes on the internet. And you reasonably anticipate that with regard to what is my pattern. My pattern is to document. Your pattern is to be caught. Your pattern is to persist when you've got facts and circumstances suggesting that you can't get away with it because nobody is gang stalking in front of everyone. The nature of the crime is supposed to be that which somebody is imagining. Nobody's imagining the police stalking me. Nobody's imagining that. Nobody's imagining you stalking for an hour flying in circles over my head. Nobody's imagining that. Nobody's imagining a son staying at one address for 9+ hours. Nobody's imagining that either. Neither is anybody disregarding it. Neither is anybody ignoring the fact that the entity is engaging in a very specific pattern. They're always stalking with the planes, they're always stalking with the helicopters, they're always stalking with the light. These are demon-possessed people, and they don't have any strategy. So when they're caught, what do? They continue to do that which they got caught doing. Stalking with light, stalking with planes and helicopters, stalking with amplified noise. They're monitoring. That's all the demons know how to do, is to monitor. They're monitoring a furtherance of murder. And now they're monitoring in America. This is legally relevant when you're prosecuting Satan. Now you're monitoring when you're being documented. That's speaking to what is, first of all, obstruction of justice, a pattern of it. While you're maintaining knowledge, the nature of the crime, you're engaged in surveillance. You know exactly what I'm publishing on the internet. You know exactly what it is that I'm stating. You know exactly how it is that an American citizen is reasonably interpreting a threat that is posed to them, while these animals engage in a behavioral pattern that is expressly and impliedly communicating an unlawful threat. While they surmise that they're going to depict you as mentally ill, and you are literally eating a buffet out of your anus. You're a feces consumer, okay? Because everybody sees this, everyone. So what do you think you're getting away with stealing? You're not stealing $1. You're not stealing anything. You're not getting away with robbery. We're going to swoop in. Okay, we don't care. It doesn't matter. It's just, forget all the evidence on the, and we're just going to manifest it. We're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to mental asylums and you're going to prison. And it's so specific, it's by name. Domestic terrorist leaders like Mike Lorenz, domestic terrorist leaders like Dominic Choi, oh, there's no statute of limitations. This is double dutch. This is teamwork. So I went from LA back to Ontario and the P.O.C. continues. Like Michael Moore to Dominic, there's no resigning out of this P.O.C. It's on the record. You've been conspiring to murder me for a long time. I hope you're ready. Because they're stalking with planes like you are ready, but you're not. You're not ready. You have no common sense. You have no idea how this evidence, which is tangible and submissible in court, is going to work against you. Where literally it's going to be crickets, because what are you going to say? You could not honestly and seriously say not guilty. But this is the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct. You're going to prison. And this is an entity that's doing so with regard to what you need to always keep at the center of your mind. While Abigail and Natasha and Alex and Alexander and Taylor and Kelly and Mickey, all these demons that are gang stalking inside of the Open Family Community Library, in other words, who are engaging in the psychopathic pacing inside of a building. It doesn't get any more, the mind is gone, okay? It doesn't get any more deranged than that. They're all inside of a building. And these are the ants and the cockroaches stalking all around inside of the building together. Every move that I make, those are monitoring spirits. These are not normal people. These are people who are demon possessed, okay? That's getting to the supernatural feature of the pattern of conduct. You're prosecuting with regard to what is the evidence of targeting. The engineer light inside of that building, not explained away by the artificial light. The ongoing stalking that I'm subject to at the venue, including now by planes and helicopters, by the entity that's stalking in an environment that is not explained away by the artificial light outside of the building, which will not create a plethora of shadows, magnified in size, varying in hue, and in magnification. That's not explained away by artificial light. In fact, that has nothing to do with that light activity. Artificial light doesn't create, you're talking about what in a normal natural environment, a light above your head creates one shadow on the ground beneath you. That's it. The sun above your head does not create your shadow above your head, okay? It doesn't project light like a laser through objects. None of that is going to be disregarded. Where the entity is stalking by the demons at the Ovid Family Community Library. Listen to more evidence that's putting them in prison. It's 7:58 p.m. I'll go ahead and show you what you're listening to. That is again hovering over a senior citizen complex. The zoning in and of itself is a blatant violation. And why are the why are the senior citizens not complaining about what is a clear violation of zoning and a clear violation of an agreement that the city makes with an airport before they construct it with regard to flights where you're anticipating flight? Why? Those are clear, glaring violations. And this is all going to be in a court case. This is all going to be in the case because you prosecute in the courtroom with facts and evidence. And all of this is relevant to what is proof. The airport is stalking. And the airport is stalking for a reason. They're stalking in furtherance of murder, and they're stalking as an entity. They're stalking for people that are outside of the United States. Did you know that? They're paid to keep me under surveillance and act in furtherance of my murder by those who are not even in the United States, including those that have invested in stealing my money and my property and silencing me. People that you wouldn't even guess, by the way. People that are in politics, people that are celebrities, people that are demons. That's why I know who you are. That's why. Because you're demons. This is an entity that's engaging in that level of obvious criminal conduct, and it's damning to the whole entity, contrary to what they are imagining in their minds it's doing. They're taking up time and twiddling their thumbs and just gang stalking me because they can't sit still and wait for the raids to happen. They can't sit still and just wait for charges, for indictments. They can't do that. So they're gang stalking, and it's not going, you're not getting a dollar. The money that was frozen in your accounts, that money that was seized, you're not getting it back. It happened, and there's not going to be any witchcraft that's going to flip it. There's no swapping. Okay, the only thing you guys are swapping are STDs. That's it. This is an entity that's engaged in that level of conduct, and guess who's going to prison? Guess who's going to prison? The demons that are out here stalking with their kids in the back seat. The demons that are out here engaging in criminal summoning, claiming that I'm cussing somebody out in the bathroom. But when those demons are actually harassing me in the bathroom, nobody's calling the police. In fact, if you do call the police, you're going to prison for that as well. The police are stalking, just like you heard on podcasts, just like you can see on my YouTube channel and on X, the evidence that's going to be played in court to prosecute the U.S. government. Because you cannot merely testify with what is your knowledge, your memory. In order to prosecute a government, you have to see it and believe it. And that's relevant to why you're going to prison, because the government's pattern of conduct is so unbelievable. It's so outrageous. It's so spectacular. It's so psychotic. It's so corrupt. It's so elaborate. It's so satanic. All right? And at the same time, it's so calculated. Okay, just because you're calculated, it doesn't mean that you're intelligent. Okay, if they were intelligent, then they wouldn't be caught under the fake sun. If they were so intelligent, then they wouldn't engage in this ongoing obvious stalking. Nobody, literally, it's going to be in court. You've got the P.O.C. because you're all trained about what you're looking at. You've got the entity, you see the helicopter activity, or you see the fake sun, you see the entity stalk with impossible light. These are all the indicators. The entity, there's the commercial, it's literally like that. You're talking about what is a prosecution. The pattern of conduct is established. These are demons. They're impotent. Okay, and I don't mean in a perverted manner like these demons, these sex ritualists are thinking in their perverted minds, meaning they are intellectually inferior. Okay, they are underneath me. I mean that. That's why it takes a whole state against the low me, and you're engaging in what is this pattern of conduct, and you think someone is going to entertain the fact that you didn't know that wasn't me that walked in that courtroom? That you think that they're going to entertain while you're engaging in this pattern of conduct, and that you did not know that I wasn't married to Jason Fields? You didn't know that? While you're engaged in this surveillance system at the same time, and you would like a federal government to entertain the notion that I am the one that's engaged in these criminal acts, and that you don't know that. This is the entity, I want to be clear, the P.O.C. is establishing surveillance. Yes, they do know. They also know that you didn't commit the crime for which they were criminally summoned to, quote unquote, look into. That's how they're engaging in stalking you and threatening you. Oh, I'm just here because I was called. That's a psychopath. Literally, that audible activity, that malicious iteration of that pattern of conduct, that's literally the evidence for their mental illness. That's that microaggressive, passive-aggressive disorder, while I'm also handling a gun on my waist and I'm wearing a badge. This is letting you know what I say goes. This is letting you know one false move. This is letting you know I have the power and control. While you're engaged in criminal conduct and you're representing what's supposed to be law enforcement, that is serving for what is a system of bullying and murdering people. You make them out to be whatever you want them to be. They're going to be diagnosed as psychopathic. Psychopathic, antisocial conduct. You're getting past the veil. That's what stalking in a helicopter, and then wants to, at the same time, again, totally delusional, separating one, compartmentalizing what you're doing. There's a whole pattern of conduct. Everybody sees what you're doing. And in federal court, everybody sees what you're doing. So you're committing kidnapping here, and you're stalking me everywhere I go in helicopters here. You're stalking me under a fake sun as an agency. Nobody's ignorant about this. The only one that's imagining are the demons who are stalking with light. And you would like to, at the same time, entertain the notion that you didn't know that Tracy Banks was lying about being me on paper when she's going to the court. This is surveillance. This is the government that's engaging in that, in other words. This is the government system, and it's international. It's international. They know exactly who you are. They know who you are. They know what you're guilty of. They know what you're not guilty of. They know what you've done. They know what you're not doing. They know what you would never do while they're defaming you. They know all of that. And I've also proven that, by the way, through this P.O.C. So this is not about me speaking with regard to what I can discern and I know intuitively. No, the pattern of conduct, the P.O.C. is proving what they know and then also what they committed, what they did maliciously is the key word there, while they engaged in that pattern of conduct. You intended to commit a kidnapping while you're targeting me in the workplace and then claiming that I'm violating the municipal code while I'm sleeping outside and I'm maintaining an investigation about you stalking me. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. And by the way, this is relevant to what is no investigation by Jason Isaac Fields. No investigation by the federal government. You're going to federal prison because what an American citizen is not equipped to do. I'm doing it, but an American citizen is not equipped to do this. That's why they target in this manner. You're going to prison. You're going to prison because you're bat crew crazy stalking in planes. Every gang stalking airline is going to be prosecuted. You're going to pay me for the ongoing terrorism. And I'm also you're going to prison. This is an entity that's engaging in that. Facing prison is relevant to an entity that's telling itself that we're just going to, no, it's not going to happen. And so we're just going to keep on stalking. We're just going to keep on monitoring because she's going to stop documenting and the case is just going to turn in our favor. And then all of a sudden what looks like we're stalking is not going to look like we're stalking. And everyone's going to believe that she's crazy and everyone's going to believe that she's imagining it. And everyone else is going to be on our side. And it's also going to look like she's imagining it. It doesn't look like a helicopter over her head where she's going for 7 days straight where the fake sun is rising and setting. It doesn't look like a fake sun. That looks like a completely natural environment, even though the sun is remaining over the building for 9+ hours. That is not a P.O.C. And that's going to be accomplished while we keep on stalking. And she keeps on putting it on the internet. And everyone keeps on witnessing it. That's where these demons are. Okay, they're going to be diagnosed with regard to impunity. Your impunity, meaning your ongoing delusional obsession, you're going to prison, and you're going to the prison where you are regularly meeting that lady. And I am not playing. I am not playing. You like stalking with impossible light? You're going to prison. While you're engaging in the pattern of conduct, you like to engage in serial stalking. You like to engage in battering me all day long at the library, staring at a computer desktop, and asking questions, oh, I need this, and getting up and getting back. While you're battering me with a desk, which is sensational activity, you're a demon, and you like to engage in what is abusing a woman through witchcraft practices. Guess what? In this case, nobody's imagining anything. I will prosecute you through your own satanic practices. You're going to prison. And then you're going to be in the area where you're routinely seeing that lady. You like to do that? That's where you're going. That's where people like that go. You're the only one imagining that no one would ever see your mental illness, that no one would ever know your criminal pattern of conduct. You're imagining that you're keeping those little children that you gave birth to who are demons who are pacing around right with you. You're imagining because you're not keeping them. You're not keeping those kids. You train them to be little demons, little vagina monitors. And you like the world to see that. Nobody missed that. Everybody's looking at my evidence. You want to sit around and watch? You're watching your own demise. They're going to watch you lose custody of their kids. They're going to watch you be deported. They're going to watch you literally drop dead, and they're going to know why. They're going to know the one that you brought witchcraft against, and they're going to know why you're going to prison. They're going to know why. They're going to know why you're sleeping outside, and they're going to know why I'm being written a fat check by multiple companies and municipalities. They're going to know why. They're going to know why there's no fire department, airport, police department, no ambulance service, martial law in Ontario, California. They're going to know why. They're going to know why. You can't just go around pacing anywhere that you want while you're engaging in gang stalking when martial law is occurring. Oh, you're not going to be able to engage in that conduct anymore. You won't even be trusted to walk to Stater Brothers where you're gang stalking there as well. I hope you're ready for that because that's what you manifested. That whole demonic conduct, you manifested death. You manifested poverty. You manifested destruction. You manifested mental illness. You manifested what is your own demise. And I'm literally putting it all over. I'm reporting it live, like literally. And then you have the audacity to be infuriated with your own conduct. You think you're keeping custody of kids? You're loony. You're loony. You're loony. Right? And you're so sick, you don't know when to just sit down and shut up. Just You should probably just sit down now. No, a mentally ill, demon-possessed person has to be restrained. That's what you're picking up. This is what you need to learn from. And this is relevant to demons that are all around the globe listening and witnessing this. This is relevant to demons that are on social media, profiting from another American citizen being targeted. You're gaining subscribes, and you're making money off of this? May the Lord have mercy on you. This is an entity that's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they do so in furtherance of murder. They derive pleasure out of watching an American citizen being targeted, and they call themselves giving tarot readings about what's going to happen to this American citizen, and then that person dies, and you don't even know that they're talking about gang stalking, that there are a bunch of demons that are monitoring on the internet, deriving pleasure out of it, engaging in what is the practice of witchcraft together. All right, and you are in your mind, you're not drawing any sort of connection. You have no idea what is going on. And it is the P.O.C. And it is, again, this is a demonic entity. And it's exposing vast public corruption where there is no investigation by Jason Isaac Fields. He was never an investigator. He's a vagina monitor. People that don't welcome him, like myself. Every other cockroach that he's had sex with but I am no such cockroach. He couldn't pay me, literally, nor can you gang stalk me into being around in your presence. It's never going to happen. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of homosexual females who are gang stalking and monitoring my vagina on behalf of Jason Isaac Fields. And they like to present themselves as being heterosexuals, even giving birth to little demons that they use to gang stalk. I just want to be clear. These are spirits. These are people who are dead. You're just not accustomed to actually that reality. It is as real as you looking up at that fake sun. You cannot deny the evidence. The fake sun that's over me this morning at the Economy Inn at 2301 South Euclid Avenue. I'm walking out of that hotel at it's during the 9 a.m. hour. Let me, Dr. Securitas gang stalking. This is the demon on the golf cart, stalking in the path with light activity. Securitas is going to be prosecuted as a terrorist, and Securitas is threatening my life while I documented them earlier, doing so with the Ontario International Airport. This is psychopathic pacing. Securitas engaged in the kidnappings with the Ontario Police at the Ovid Family Community Library as well. Just want to be clear on that. That's what you're listening to at 8:12 p.m. At the Economy Inn this morning at 9:35 and 33 seconds, you will see the fake sun over me at the same Economy Inn. You're looking at what is an illusion, and that is something that you cannot deny. Okay, the illusion is real, in other words, but it's an illusion with regard to some sort of natural environment where you are literally left to what is the truth. As someone has been, and myself, I've been able to show you what is the spiritual realm as you're able to see the evidence of it in the physical. And the spiritual realm being that which is demonic. The entity is engaging in what is maintaining a crime scene. And you know that it's also true because the demons start sounding their sirens. While Securitas is engaged in light activity creation, and I will be prosecuting, they engaged in kidnapping September 28, 2025 at the Ontario Town Square. They engaged in what is kidnapping June 16, 2022 at the Ovid Family Community Library. They're repeatedly engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of my murder. I'm going to prosecute that company. I'm going to prosecute the cockroaches that wear that uniform. Those like Dylan of the Ovid Family Community Library, like the mop, the black female that wears a mop on her head. She's a psychopath. She's a demon that is engaged in very heavily mentally ill, deranged conduct, stalking with light, just like this demon is. This heavy-set Latino male engaged in what is using the golf cart as light activity while those demons are pacing around sounding their sirens while they're triggered by the fact of the fake sun is over the same location it was this morning as it is when you're looking at the reality of that illusion showing criminal surveillance. Knowledge about who's walking into a courtroom acting like they're me. Knowledge about where I'm located as opposed to stating that I'm missing. Knowledge about the fact that I'm not a drug addict and never have been. Knowledge about the fact that I'm not molesting any children. Knowledge about the fact that I am engaged in what is minding my business, and the entity is targeting me, and that I'm not making up anything. I'm exposing them. They know about, it's called malice. You're going to prison, and you're going to see this illusion regarding what is Economy Inn, the room that I'm inside of yesterday at 4:14 and 56 seconds. The fake sun is in the same position it is as I walk to the end of that parking lot. That's capturing proof of the illusion, where the entity is stalking. And what happens with that fake sun? Does it remain at that parking lot to be present after 4:14 p.m. like I documented yesterday evening? Because you're talking about the sun? The sun, which would be in a substantially identical place? No, it's moving in real time on video as I capture a board omnitrans. This is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct while they're keeping a fake sun over me, specifically aware of who I am and what I'm doing, including in places like the bathroom, including in places like a hotel room, including at places like the Ovid Family Community Library, where the entity is engaged in criminal summoning, stalking. That's P.O.C. All right? This is the entity that's engaging in that while they're sounding sirens, monitoring with Securitas. Securitas is accumulating what is the federal case for prison, while the cockroaches that are wearing Ontario police uniforms are stalking at the venue. Talking to, just like Jay Sandoval is under the 8:39 a.m. fake sun, in engineer light, while I'm documenting the entity stalking by helicopter, I'm documenting them stalking by commercial planes, and they're engaged in what is relevant positioning. This is stalking that is underway while the entity is monitoring the evidence and communicating an unlawful threat as unlawful as stalking using helicopters. A terrorizing threat, in fact, in the engineered environment where that entity is engaging in that P.O.C. as a department committing kidnappings under the municipal code. While they're engaging in that, and I'm taking pictures of it right now, and they're doing so in the engineered environment. So I'll show you where the entity is engaging in that, and this is the same thing that the entity is doing when I am documenting demons such as Jason Isaac Fields, who are not engaged in any sort of investigation. This is an entity that's engaging in the same pattern of conduct where, for example, I'm at the bus stop and there's also no light activity from your headlights. That creates the same light activity that is here. While they're engaging in surveillance, wearing uniforms that they are unfit in, okay, unless the Ontario Police Department are overtly admitting to being engaged in surveillance because they're not fit for law enforcement. This is the entity that's engaging in that P.O.C. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is P.O.C.
Hi.
Hello.
Do you have somewhere else to be?
Why?
Because somebody's annoyed with how loud you are.
Who is somebody?
I don't know. I think someone living in here.
You don't know somebody over here?
Yeah, it just came from this building. I couldn't even check where it's from.
Okay, so you have an anonymous tip?
Basically.
Okay, that you want me to leave?
No, well, first of all, we want to make sure you're okay.
What does it look like? While they're communicating a threat. This is a threat. While they're bearing weapons and monitoring. What does it look like?
Looks like you're not okay.
What does not okay look like?
You're actively yelling and being loud.
I'm actively yelling right now?
Not right now.
What does actively mean?
You're yelling.
Does that mean actively
Is
yelling?
there anything we can help you with?
Well, you're making statements that are defamatory, so I want you to clarify what you mean
I'm
by
making the
actively.
statements that we received from our dispatch based off the person who called, so...
Right, and that's called criminal summoning. So with regard to, what is your name? R. Lily? What's your badge number?
I don't have to give it to you.
Oh, you don't have to? Okay, that's a federal charge because they're engaged in federal stalking, and they do. What's your name? S. Casas? What's your badge number?
I don't have to give that to you.
You don't have to when they're engaged in criminal monitoring, and what
Do you
about
need our
yours?
help?
What about
Do you
yours,
need our help?
sir? You said that I was actively yelling, so I'm
you
going to
need our
calmly
help?
ask you for your badge
Do you need
number.
our
I can
help?
give that to you.
You don't have to? So everybody is here reporting for someone
Do you
else.
need our help or not?
But are you trying to help me? It would be helpful if you gave me your badge number.
I don't have to give that to you.
So why not? If you're
Because I
here,
don't have to give that to you.
oh, you don't
We
have to?
we don't
When
do
you're
this
engaged in
here.
federal stalking, do you openly address that as
Do you
well?
need our help or not?
Did I ask you for help?
No.
So why are
It
you
sounds
asking
like
me
you
a
need our
question?
help.
How?
Because you were yelling before we got here.
No, I'm engaged in what is using my device, and you cannot dictate what volume I'm going to speak at. So because you want to
But
call
you're
something
making
yelling,
No, you're making other people uncomfortable in there, and it's a
other people
nuisance
that
to
you
them.
don't know, it's a
Yeah,
nuisance.
we do have
So
their
is the
phone
plane
numbers.
activity.
We do have their phone
I'm
numbers.
sure you can. That's called criminal summoning. That's fine. With me, you're asking me, do I want help? And I didn't ask you to be here. I asked you for your badge number. You don't want to give me that. Is there anything else? What else would you like
have
with this
any-
encounter?
Service, ma'am. So someone called in and stated that you were
criminal
causing
summoning.
a noise disturbance, which is against the law. That's why we're contacting.
Against the law while they're engaged in federal stalking.
There's no federal stalking.
Do you know what federal stalking is?
Ma'am, there's no federal stalking.
Do you know what federal stalking is?
Yeah, do you?
Under Title 18, yeah.
know what it
You know
is?
the section?
Okay, so we're not going to go back and forth.
Because you
about
don't, but they're
this.
engaging
If
in
you
it.
continue to cause a noise disturbance, you'll
What
be
is the
arrested
noise
for
disturbance?
PC 450.
You
Talking
being
to you
loud.
right now?
You being
That's-
loud
that's
before
it,
we got
here it
here.
is. Do you
No,
know
no,
where
you're
at?
stating
Do you know where you're at right
you're
now?
stating that me talking to you is the noise disturbance,
know-
or the
she
call
didn't
that you
say
got
that.
before.
Do
I'm
you
clarifying
know-
that.
The call
Do you know
before,
where you're
Before.
the
at
call
right
for
now?
service that she just stated that why we were here, why we have a lawful reason to be here.
No, you don't.
Yes, we
No, you
do.
don't. But I'm using my phone, so
you
I'm not
know
gonna
where you're
I'm not
at
gonna
right now?
debate with you. But I'm documenting this because you don't have a
Do you know
lawful
what day it
business.
is?
Is there anything else? This is all defamatory speech while they're monitoring.
So you
Is
don't
there
know
anything
what
else?
day it is?
See,
You don't know where
Hazelwood
you're
commits
at?
kidnapping under the municipal code while they're engaged in the same pattern
your
of conduct.
name?
Is there anything else? Is there anything else?
What's your name?
Are
She's
you?
talking to you.
and-
So yes, there is something else. If you could just open your
Wait,
ears
I'm
and
sorry.
listen to her.
Are you detaining me?
Yes.
Yes.
How?
Because there's
How?
a noise disturbance on you.
And you stated that you wanted me to do what?
Answer her question.
No, you did not say that. You did not say that. You didn't. She wasn't even speaking. What are you confused about what's happening right now?
She was
Do
speaking.
you know where you're at?
She was speaking.
Do you know where you're at right now?
So you did hear her.
Do you
because
remember
that's
what you just
exactly
said
what
to
she
me?
asked you.
No, you
Are you
approached
under the
me
influence of any
and
drugs
stated,
right now?
you approached me and stated, this is defamation and they're going to be diagnosed and prosecuted because this isn't a lawful threat. But I just want to be clear, you can't defame me, by the way. None of the questions that you're
Do you
asking
have any
are within
mental health issues?
any.
or have
Do
used
you?
Any kind of drugs
What's your
to-
name?
No, I don't actually. My
You
name
don't-
is Sergeant Hall, badge number 80491.
Thank you. Okay, how come they don't want to comply with that?
Because we don't have to do that.
They don't have to.
Okay, so
I'm the
what is it
supervisor, so
that
you can
when
address me.
you're summoning, you're summoning me to, I mean, you're summoned by Securitas, right?
No, we were not.
No, he didn't
Oh.
call us.
Okay, so some mysterious person
No,
summoned you.
not a mysterious person. We have
You
their
have
name
their
and
phone number, which is admitted criminal summoning, and you stated that this encounter is precipitating from a response regarding, or excuse me, a request that someone is being annoying. You use the word nuisance.
No, you're causing a noise disturbance.
Yeah, you could
which
put it
we've
however
said
you want.
multiple times, which
She
is
said
our
that.
reason to detain you.
To detain? How?
Do you know
How?
what a detainment is?
I know, I absolutely know what the law is. You're escalating a
you should know.
situation.
There's no
Yes, you are, because I'm asking you, it goes from what do you want? So this is what you were told, and so you need to lower your volume, or now you're going to detain me?
No,
Who's
you've already
yelling?
been detained.
You don't have you have reasonable suspicion based on what? What somebody told you?
Based on us hearing you screaming when we walked up.
Screaming. Well, we can rewind the tape back and confirm that.
Loud enough to where
We can confirm that. You're standing here, and there are people that are, the kids that are screaming. You have the entity that's maintaining ongoing audible noise where you can't even hear me over the planes
So
and the
you're gonna keep your voice
helicopters.
down or not?
Am I yelling right
all
now?
we're asking
I didn't
you to
ask-
do
I
is
didn't
keep
say
your
that
voice
you were
down.
yelling.
Okay, so that answers your question.
So how about this?
So you were yelling before we got here.
No, you're stating that I was yelling.
That's exactly what I said. I'm stating that you were yelling because I heard it with my own ears. So did these gentlemen. So I'm asking, are you going to lower your voice so that we cannot bother you anymore and leave and do something else that's not this?
That's way more important than this because this is on the
This is
lowest
P.O.C.
scale.
Yes or no?
This is P.O.C.
Are you going to lower your voice so that
I
we
am
can go
not
do
yelling.
anything out there?
I'm not yelling
If
now.
we get another call,
I'm going to remain
you're
on
gonna
my
be arrested.
phone.
How about that?
I'm remaining on my phone, and that's prison for threatening to engage in kidnapping. Do you feel this is all POC? Look at their shadows. Just want to document that. That's the pattern of conduct. This is the entity 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicles, and that's Securitas engaging in that pattern of conduct together. This is where the entity is stalking by helicopter, and that's the POC. Vehicle 1122. That's CEASELESS. This is criminal summoning, license 1697700, license 1680790, vehicle 1116 in the engineered environment where the entity is stalking by helicopter, vehicle 1109-1683792, and this is the so-called sergeant, vehicle 1065C1661786. That's POC. This is psychopathic pacing. They're monitoring together. License plate 5LCG369. 9SOY336. This is the entity that's engaging in what is the ongoing threat based on what it is that I'm documenting, just like they did by helicopter activity, and communicating an overt threat to engage in kidnapping. This is the entity that's engaging in that with Securitas, who's been monitoring the entire time, engaging in sexual assault and battery, doing so under what is the fake moon. Those are psychopaths that are engaging in what is the exercise of fictitious authority, referring to who are the people in the state that are gang stalking, not disturbed by the plane activity, by the way, not disturbed by the helicopter activity, but the entity that's engaging in what is criminal summoning pursuant to what is the pattern of conduct. I just want to be clear, that's the entity that's engaging in that with what is the system that Jason Isaac Fields is relying on to commit what is kidnappings, pertaining to what is an ongoing pattern, a narrative regarding what is targeting. So I just want to be clear on that. This is the entity that's engaging in that, relying on what is the volume, my volume as a means of what is harassment, while they are engaging in what is conduct when I am absolutely mute. That was a guise of the same exact pattern of conduct. The same exact pattern of conduct where the entity is engaging in this POC. This is the engineer light. That's the entity that's engaging in what is communicating a threat, while they're engaged in that POC, which is what they are always committing. You are not forgetting the fact of the entity that is stalking with the airport that has no flights taken off here, stalking with the entity that is maintaining helicopter activity, and that's a threat while they're all bearing weapons and speaking to and referring to what is a volume volume disturbance, a nuisance, while they're engaging in what is the ongoing public nuisance of stalking, by the way. That ongoing hypocrisy is what I want to point out. But I want to be clear, this is the entity that is using that as a means of harassment. All these demons in here are gang stalking while they're claiming, she's too loud, go ahead and call the police. This is the entity that's engaging in criminal summoning at what is the Ovid Family Community Library, by the way. This is P.O.C. And that's the entity's fake moon. This is where the fake sun is during the day. Her shadow is moving across this wall over here. The Ontario police are demons who are gang stalking. That's impossible light activity. And she's monitoring, just like they are with the demons who are the Ontario Police Department who engage in terrorism. This is the pattern of conduct. So let me show you where they are indeed engaged in targeting. This is the P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging what is targeting that environment. Here you are. So I just want to zoom in so you can see. Her shadow is appearing way. This is relevant to what is surveillance. It's faint, but this is my arm because I want to get this. This is the light activity where the substance of what the Ontario police just stated is a threat to engage in kidnapping upon the exercise of fictitious authority. Fictitious authority that they exercise with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, who are also engaged in kidnapping in the same exact specific environment where they're engaged in what is gang stalking. Okay, the pattern of conduct regarding what is the elements of monitoring. This is my shadow appearing on this column right here. Let me back up some. This is a light activity while they're pacing in the engineer light, and these are their shadows here. This is relevant to surveillance that they're engaging in, and they're engaging in what is the pattern of conduct with Securitas. Okay, third-party kidnapper at Ovid Family Community Library at the Ontario Town Square, and criminal summoning a threat to commit kidnapping with the same employee. That's the P.O.C. The entity is engaging in that while they're making threats to engage in what is kidnapping, and I want to make sure that you are aware of that. This is the pattern of conduct. This is the specific environment where they're engaged in criminal surveillance. Okay, multiple shadows while you're engaging in what is stalking with the police department because of the substance of my documentation, and the entity is engaging in that psychopathic behavior, communicating a threat to commit kidnapping and doing so under the guise of having authority under the law. They don't have authority under the municipal code. That's where Craig, Hazelwoods, and Owens are committing a kidnapping. They don't do so when they're engaged in federal stalking, where they're hostile because they don't know that section, and you're engaged in criminal conduct while you want to use what is my volume, while you're gang stalking me, and they're doing so with the people of the state. All of these old people in this entire apartment building are gang stalking with the airport and the police department that's flying over that apartment building. That's relevant to the malice of the entity that commits kidnapping. That's the same entity that's stalking, knowing exactly who I am under that illusion. Don't be distracted because it's relevant to the entity keeping that fake sun over Economy Inn. The same location that it was this morning at 9, just like I was talking about. This is the entity that's engaged in that. You saw what is the, I just concluded the video right now. The entity that's maintaining that pattern of conduct, and I'm showing you that illusion regarding what is the fake sun over the Economy in the same location. While I'm walking out and I'm at the same end of the parking lot where the fake sun is sitting over that same corner of that parking lot in the evening at 4:14 p.m. This is where the entity is engaged in criminal summoning as I'm exposing very damning evidence regarding they know exactly who you are, and they're using the volume of my voice right now as a means to engage in what is an intimidation tactic, a threat to engage in kidnapping pursuant to fictitious authority with the people of the state who are gang stalking, just like they are at the hotel where the fake sun's over me at the same position, 4:14 p.m. and 9:35 a.m. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and this is the pattern of conduct. I'm going to upload what is the link to this video and also the image, the screenshot, which it's already uploaded to the Google Drive, but I'll go ahead and upload it so you can see it as well. Again, this is where the entity is maintaining that pattern of conduct. They're walking around at where the demons that are wearing that police uniform are monitoring. You're looking at the light activity, and that's all they're doing. Those are the demons that are monitoring while they're bearing guns and badges and talking about, we got a call about your volume. This is why we're here. They're gang stalking. They're gang stalking, and they're gang stalking with regard to a threat to commit kidnapping because they don't like the volume at which I'm prosecuting them and exposing them, the fact that they are demons stalking under a fake sun, engaging in surveillance, and you are engaging in surveillance directly rebutting any authority under the law. The entity is very much engaged in what is threatening and engaging in what is threatening to commit kidnapping while they don't have that authority. That's relevant to the mentally ill that are unfit to even act like their police department like the Ontario Police Department is doing via this podcast, which is what I'm capturing. Just want to be clear on that. This is the video, that video I'm going to publish, but I'm going to refer to this. Let me get this image. Right, the fake sun that you can see at the same location as it is at the corner of the hotel room at 2:24, and you'll see the engineer light sprawling underneath a covered structure at 4:14 p.m. on January 1st, 2026, 4:14 and 56 seconds. This morning, January 2nd at 9:35 and 33 seconds, I'm capturing the fake sun, which is at that same corner relative to that hotel room, and you're talking about 9:35 a.m. and 4:14 p.m. That's capturing that illusion. This is also relevant to what is surveillance knowledge about who you are and what you're doing, what you're saying, and the entity. While I'm referring to this is where the entity is arriving, engaging in criminal summoning, where the airport is stalking, where that same department is stalking by helicopter, and doing so with Securitas. Be clear, the entity is engaging in that. On video, you'll see the engineer light, where the airport is stalking, where the entity is stalking by helicopter, and engaging in what is criminal summoning. That entire department is, you're talking about what is federal prison for Mike LORENZ, and you're talking about also what is prison for those kidnappers that engage in that. And this is what Tracy Banks relies on in court. They're asking questions regarding mental illness. That's entity that's engaging what is defamatory audible activity, trying to in any way convey when you are a demon stalking with light, certifiable conduct. When you are a demon criminally stalking, wearing a police uniform, very malicious, certifiable conduct. When you're engaged in criminal activity and is seeking to obstruct justice, meaning create a diversion even as it's incriminating, and you're doing so because of the evidence of me talking about the fake sun that's over the same location from 9:35, and you're listening to a gang stalker police department talking about, do you know where you're at? Do you know where you're at, where the entity has the fake moon over me? And this is a psychopath, a demon that's posing those questions. Wearing a gun, wearing a badge, stalking in a police uniform, stalking in a police vehicle, getting in helicopters and stalking me, one person, and doing so while the fake moon is over my head at this Ovid Family Community Library, doing so while I'm pointing out very damning evidence. The fake sun is remaining over Economy Inn at 2301 South Euclid Avenue. Yesterday, January 1st, 2026 at 4:14 p.m. And today, this morning, January 2nd, 2026 at 9:35 a.m. The same position relative to me while I'm inside of that hotel room. You're looking at it at that corner at the opposite end of the parking lot. While I'm standing at that opposite end of that parking lot, it's diagonal to that same hotel room. And that's the duration of time analysis. There is no sun that's going to be over the Ovid Family Community Library, contrary to where I'm at right now, where I'm documenting that pattern of conduct. The entity had the fake sun over me upon my arrival during the 10 a.m. hour. This is where the entity has the fake moon, and these demons are in engineer light while you could see in the video, the engineer light where you're posing questions that are supposed to serve to directly rebut the evidence, and this is an entity that's delusional. You're stalking in planes. No one is deceived about what is the substance of the pattern of conduct by that agency, but that's why they're going to prison. Mike LORENZ is going to federal prison. That's an entity that's prepared to commit a kidnapping. That's the threat that they're posing. Talking about somebody and trying to defame their character and pose questions that are not relevant. Everybody knows I know exactly where I'm at. I document the venues. I'm talking about the previous venue. I'm documenting where I'm at on video. This is an entity that engages in that sort of conduct to try to criminally defame someone else, which does not work when you are, by facts, evidence, a feces consumer. Everybody in that apartment building that you are referring to as a means of criminal summoning is a feces consumer. And while I'm referring to very damning evidence, including this feces consumer wearing a Securitas uniform, this is an entity that's engaging in that. I just want to be clear on that. This is an entity that's engaging in that while they are indeed stalking as an entity, and they are doing so while I am documenting the pattern of conduct that is underway by Securitas. This is, again, you have the African-American female with Securitas that's gang stalking. She's engaged in kidnapping, criminal summoning with the Ontario Police Department, and Securitas is very much engaged in criminal monitoring, doing so with the Ontario Police Department. You'll see him standing in engineer light. His shadows are perpendicular. He has 3 of them at every angle behind him and on both sides of him while he's stalking with the Ontario Police, engaging in criminal summoning, which is relevant to what is kidnapping. And this is a demon that's under the fake moon in the engineer light, stalking with the Ontario Police by helicopter, stalking with the Ontario Police with the airport as well, stalking with the entity that's maintaining this specific environment, which is not explained away. It's directly relevant to also the entity that engaged in criminal defamation. The so-called sergeant, she's engaged in criminal defamation. That's federal prison. The entity that's at CEASELESS, and these demons that don't want to provide their badge numbers, that's while they're engaged in the conspiracy to commit murder while they're gang stalking. That is indeed a federal offense. They're engaged in what is not the execution of the duties of officers. They're engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder. And they are also refusing, while they're exercising fictitious authority, while they're engaged in criminal activity and trying to get away with it by wearing a police uniform, refusing to identify themselves. Okay? And you want specificity. I want your badge number while you're gang stalking me. Absolutely. And that is the entity that's engaging in defamatory monitoring, audible activity. Do you know where you're at? All right, this is an entity that's engaging. You are eating feces on a daily basis. You're a gargoyle. You're stalking under a fake moon. You're hostile because I'm documenting. That's a demon. And you're doing so while you're exercising authority that you don't actually have. And that makes you feel powerful because you're engaged in that. Because also, I just want to be clear, these are demons that are stalking, and they're very much engaged in criminal conduct, which is very laid out, very plain. With regard to the bigger picture, they are relying on the moment right now. The moment that you're talking about, you're threatening to engage because you're paying attention to the threat. So you want me to do what? You're escalating from, you want me to lower my volume? Am I yelling now? Am I yelling now? When you're talking about, so if I'm not yelling now, why are you asking me questions? Did I ask you why to be here? What is it that you want me to do? Why are you asking me these questions? This is an entity that's engaging in, that's intentional conduct. This is an entity that seeks to try to confuse other people and then try to misrepresent them as being uncooperative, for example. This is an entity that wants to try to falsely depict their character as one that is mentally ill, doesn't know where they are, can't answer questions, uncooperative, and then committing what is a kidnapping when you're a gargoyle stalking an engineer light under a fake moon with a pattern of conduct of stalking me by planes and helicopters. The entity that engages in that unbelievable pattern of conduct is malicious. Malicious. While you are very much engaging in that because of the evidence. When I talk about the fake sun at Economy Inn, like I documented, 9:35 and 4:14 p.m. in the same position as you capture the proof of the illusion, that illusion is directly relevant to everything that I just documented right now that Ontario Police Department is committing with Securitas. All right, they're sitting there talking to Securitas. And I can talk on my phone as loud as I want, by the way, especially when this is relevant to context. You're gang stalking. It's not about my volume, it's about my evidence. It's about the fact that you're engaging in what is any means of seeking to harass and target. That's what it is about. The entities engage in criminal summoning under all circumstances. Those demons are subject to federal prison. This is exactly what an entity is doing. You're not conducting an investigation. There's no investigation regarding what is 7 years of that entity engaging in that under the fake sun as well. The fake sun that's over me at the Ontario Town Square at 9 in the morning, and S. Patty is engaged in what is criminal summoning under that fake sun at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. While the people of the state make up reasons. Making up reasons such as I'm holding up my phone and they're on the opposite side of the lens, assuming that it has something to do with them. And that's because they're engaged in criminal monitoring. There are demons that engage in harassment while they are necessarily assuming what you're doing on your phone in the abstract. What is it? Why would you be assuming that with regard to what is a guilty conscience, with regard to what is specific knowledge? And that specific knowledge is directly tethered to that fake sun that S. Patty is engaged in criminal summoning under at the Ontario Town Square in 2022. February 27, 2022, to be specific. This is the pattern of conduct of that entity relying on criminal summoning to commit kidnapping. And they're doing so through this podcast right now as I'm documenting it, while I am documenting this P.O.C. This is an entity that engages in that, and that's the impunity behind stalking as an entity. And this is the Ontario Police that are very much engaged in what is communicating a very potent threat. Those are demons standing in front of my face. S. Casa is pulling out her black gloves like you're about to put your hands on me, like you're about to commit a kidnapping while you're asking me questions that are nonsensical. Because the reason why I'm repeating what you're talking about is because why are you asking me whether I need your help? I didn't ask you for anything. Because the real issue is, why are you in my face? Even though you know the answer to that question, what is your explanation as to why you're in my face? The reason is always going to be given, oh, it's because we got a call over here. Well, if you got a call over there and you see me on my phone, there's actually nothing else to talk about other than you do not have reasonable suspicion to maintain what is a detention upon what is clearly resolved. I'm not yelling. So what are you detaining me for? That was the entity exercising fictitious authority, and that's a threat to engage in kidnapping. And they are, listen, if you play the tape back, escalating a non-situation as well. While I'm recording them, and this is why you also record, because they're liars, stating you got a call regarding what is a noise disturbance, and the entity immediately escalating that of its own volition, making up the facts and circumstances. I committed a battery against the Securitas security guard. That's literally what they engage in. And this is also why you document demons that are stalking under a fake sun and a fake moon and an engineer light where they're actually engaged in what is targeting you and furtherance of murder. as opposed to engaging in the execution of duties of officers, because federal stalking and the execution of officers, duties of officers, do not coexist. It's not simultaneously occurring. You are not engaged in criminal conduct as a pattern of conduct as a department, and also exercising authority under the law. And because they are engaging in that, they will be prosecuted as a department, with Mike Lorenz is going to prison for. He is a terrorist leader while they're engaged in gang violence, just like what I just documented. And it's directly relevant to a documented pattern of conduct seeking to obstruct justice, such as when I'm exposing a fake sign over 2301 South Euclid Avenue in the same position at 4:14 p.m. and at 9:35 in the morning, while it remains over me when I leave that property, where under no circumstances in the natural environment is it going to sit there anyway and still be there at 4:14 p.m. That's the pattern of conduct, and that's also relevant to the entity engaging in criminal summoning at the moment in time that they do, for the reasons that they admittedly do so. The people of the state, the demons that are stalking and kidnapping with them, and manufacturing engineering information with them, stalking with light with them, stalking under the fake sun and the fake moon with them. And then they're engaging in that criminal summoning. I just want to be clear, I captured that on video. That's the entity that is being disbanded. Those are demons. They were monitoring while the entity engaged in criminal summoning, sounding their sirens. And then the entity engages in what is arriving in relevant position, conspicuously stalking. They were stalking the entire time. Just like before they engaged in stalking by helicopter, they were stalking the entire time. They utilize helicopter when I start publishing evidence. They utilize helicopter activity again when I speak to the fact that gang stalking police officers that are engaged in what are kidnappings pursuant to criminal surveillance, with which they then engage in what is criminal defamation, they go to prison. That's when the entity starts sounding helicopter, as I'm preparing to publish that on X, which I captured on video. This is an entity that's then engaging in criminal summoning. Again, Title 18 federal stalking with the intent to obstruct justice, threatening me, being in my face, saying, oh, it's your volume. We got a noise disturbance from a gang stalker in the engineer light. The entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct. And let's recall, while I'm at the Ovid Family Community Library, a couple nights ago, when I'm publishing damning evidence, when I'm not speaking at all on podcasts and I'm publishing the evidence, the entity engaging in the same exact pattern of conduct. Oh, we got a call. Someone told us you were just standing there. Not making any noise, not my volume that time. I'm just standing there. And that's what they're relying on to be in my presence. Those are demons that are pacing. Those are demons that are engaging in what is the cowardly acts of stalking and monitoring and communicating a threat, because they're hostile also about what you're exposing about them. They're doing so in the face of what is a so-called investigation. The federal government is not engaging in an investigation. The federal government is engaged in and invested in what is the obstruction of justice, which they relied on the Ontario Police Department, the forefront of criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder. They're the ones that commit kidnapping. And by the way, the same exact circumstances by demons who are engaged in what are trying to bully me. And these feces consumers trying to defame me, asking me, do I know where I'm at? This is an entity that's engaged in what is mentally ill behavior as a pattern of conduct. You are an entire feces consumer stalking in a helicopter. Do I know where I'm at? Do you know where you are at? Did you forget what you just said to me? Do you understand what you just meant? You referenced a nuisance. And when I'm speaking with them, I'm speaking with them and I'm having an exchange with them, and I'm no longer documenting on my podcast, so my volume is lessening while I'm speaking to them. There's no more volume issue, which is the guise under which they're engaged in stalking me, conspicuously communicating a threat, while they're engaged in federal stalking. And this is mentally ill behavior, while their audible activity is seeking to suggest that I don't know where I'm at. And you are supposed to be looking at that in a vacuum and forgetting everything else that's documented and really believing, oh, this is somebody that's mentally ill. That's literally what they rely on. That's the entity. I just want to be clear. That's the federal offense of criminal defamation. Criminal defamation is committed in furtherance of murder to help people like Tracy Banks, who commit kidnapping with that same agency under the Welfare and Institutions Code, when they lie about an act of violence occurring. That did not happen. That does not happen. In fact, Tracy Banks is the one that's engaged in physical acts of violence against me on more than one occasion, and then engaging in criminal summoning. This is exactly what the Chucky doll did at the Ontario Veterinary Hospital. Who's engaging in violence? The people of the state. And who's engaged in criminal summoning? The people of the state. And who's stalking in that video by helicopter? The Ontario Police Department, who are claiming that they got a call and that's why they're in my face. Not that they're stalking at every second of the day, while you have the audacity as a feces consumer to be absurdly psychotic, asking me questions in order to try to suggest that I'm mentally ill. And I am, in every regard, litigating and prosecuting and serving to diagnose your severe mental instability that is no longer closeted. Those are the cowards that are hiding behind a badge that I'm stripping off of them. You can clearly see the mental illness. Look at what Craig Hazelwood is doing in that engineer light at 3 o'clock in the morning. That demon is pacing on the curb with another demon, the people of the state, just like they were here at the Ovid Family Community Library. Those demons that walking their dog and walking in the entrance, they're doing so in engineer light. Those demons are pacing just like they are with Securitas. Those demons are pacing and monitoring together, and they arrive in the path. And they're doing so with whatever that they have, with whatever that they can make up, even if it's nothing and I'm mute and I'm using my phone. Oh, we got a call that you were standing over here. Are you okay? Okay, that's the video. I'll remind you about that video. The entities engaged in what is, that's federal prison. I just want to be clear on that. The entities engaged in what I'm pointing out to you, which are their strategies. Those strategies serve a criminal objective. Those are the same strategies that Jason Fields and Tracy Banks, a gang stalking court, relies on, that the entity looks up on the internet in order to defame your character. Oh, we arrested her because she engaged in what is molesting a child. Because she's mentally ill and she is conducting herself in a way that she's seems to be incoherent. All right, we're going to have her committed because she's not capable of taking care of herself. That's why she's homeless. And this is an entity that is maintaining a fake conservatorship and maintaining a fake marriage to me on paper, serving for what is profiting off of gang stalking me with terrorists like the Ontario Police Department, who engaged in what is threatening to commit kidnapping and criminal defamation upon criminal summoning by the entity, and they're all stalking together in the engineer light, which you can see in the video, under the fake moon that's over the same library where the fake sun is rising and setting over me. And they're doing so pursuant to Title 18 federal stalking, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. This demon that's engaged in trying to exert what is force over me, trying to act as she's in some authoritative manner because I refer to federal stalking, which she does not know that statute. She does not know what it is. This is an entity that's engaging in that. Again, you're trying to combat intellect. You're trying to combat what is a legal means of prosecuting you with what is brute force. And I just want to be clear. The dummy that eats feces and wears a gun is not smarter, and it does not make you right. It makes you a criminal. That's what they're relying on. Gang violence. Gang violence. It has nothing to do with my volume. My volume is serving for monitoring myself. They're monitoring me while I'm speaking, while I'm documenting. And they're engaging what is communicating a threat. And I want to be clear. Pay attention, because I captured it on screenshots. The Economy Inn, where that agency committed kidnapping September 25th, 2020, serving for what is defaming my character and stealing my money, a large amount of money and property for years, upon repeated acts of kidnapping by the Ontario Police, who are criminally defaming, even in the audible activity. Those are criminal offenses regarding what she was stating, what they were stating, regarding refusing to identify themselves while you're engaged in domestic terrorism, regarding what is harassment while you are stalking me and wearing a uniform, engaging in that clear, overt threat. While you're engaged in the pattern of conduct, the entity's doing so, threatening my life. A bunch of gang members surrounding me, bearing guns, that want to be engaged in what is a means of harassing me, waiting for me to, quote unquote, violate what is their exercise of fictitious authority, while they're increasingly escalating. How does it go from volume? Okay, there's no volume issue now. Why are you still in my face? What do you want? You're asking me, how can you help me? I didn't ask you to be here. And the volume is not an issue. That's why I'm asking, what are you talking about? And I just want to be clear. These are demons that know that. They call themselves trying to scramble the conversation. They call themselves trying to confuse it while blaming you for the confusion, as though you're incoherent, as though you don't understand what's going on. And they're asking you questions. Do you know where you're at? That's a tactic. Okay, that's malicious. And I want to be clear, Casas and the so-called, the demon that's identifying her badge number, I'm glad. The captain, that's prison. That's criminal defamation. The entity does so by suggestion, by virtue of their presence. It doesn't have to be an established fact. They rely on innuendo. They rely on the suggestion. They rely on that which is implied by virtue, because we wouldn't be here if it weren't the case. They literally rely on that. The absence of fact. Gang violence, because the gang members say so. Okay, I read all of their license plates. They're in the engineer light. They're under the fake moon. They're communicating a threat if we get another call while they're stalking. They engage in calling when nothing happens. You're engaging in what is a threat to commit kidnapping while you're gang stalking, refusing to identify yourself at that. And Securitas is a documented terrorist engaging in kidnapping as a pattern of conduct. At the Ontario Town Square, at the Ovid Family Community Library, they're engaging in that pattern of conduct with the intent to obstruct justice while they are demons whose, I just want to be clear, they're very fearful while I document. And the demons engage in more acts of terrorism. That's what the demons inside of the Ovid Family Community Library are doing all day long. The more that I document, the more psychopathic their behavior becomes. The more stalking with noise, the more stalking with impossible light, the more psychopathic pacing. That is converted by gang stalking police departments who bear guns, who commit kidnappings, who do so because the people of the state who are gang stalking summon them, which is a whole illusion. She's talking about you have their phone number. I bet you do, Satan. It's evidence of criminal summoning. The entities engaging in the pattern of conduct, that is not rebutting the evidence of federal group stalking and monitoring. It is ongoing evidence, tangible evidence, speaking to who's going to prison. The question is not whether they actually got a call summoning them. The question is the substance of the act. The question is whether this is relevant to a pattern of conduct exposing public corruption, because those calls are relevant to what is conspicuous means of targeting someone that's has what is, again, not coincidentally, an ongoing documentation of targeting by a department, maintaining ongoing public nuisance conduct that they're referring to, a nuisance. Wow, that's amazing. The entities engaging in what is a nuisance-like conduct, stalking me in helicopters on an ongoing, ceaseless, frequent basis, including over that apartment complex, stalking in planes. When you want to refer to a nuisance, we're going to remember that in court. We're going to remember that in the courtroom, where they're not thinking about that right now. They're not thinking about that right now. They're focused on, I'm going to show up in your face and make a threat, and also impliedly, while you're monitoring is committed in furtherance of murder. You're engaged in the conspiracy to commit murder, and you're doing so as a police officer, not a real police officer, but you want to mimic one. This is what Satan is dressing up. Satan likes to engage in kidnapping and calling it an arrest under some section, while Satan's engaging in stalking. Not law enforcement. Satan's going to prison for that. Satan's going by the name of the Ontario Police Department. And this is where a bunch of gang members right now engaged in that. And they're doing so while they're referring to things such as a nuisance. The nuisance that is my voice, not the helicopter activity, not the plane activity, which I also documented before that moment. And they also engage in that conduct with, just to be clear, the entity's doing so in the specific environment and also doing it under circumstances where I'm not saying a word. Just so that you know, it has nothing to do with my volume. It has everything to do with what is perhaps the volume with which I'm prosecuting you. That's what it is. But I just want to be clear, the ordinary target individual doesn't have to come up with an excuse as to why. The why is how they try to rationalize targeting. When you're ignorant about the engineer light, when you're making threats about arresting, that's a kidnapping. You're threatening to engage in kidnapping. While you're gang stalking and you are representing an agency and you refuse to identify yourself, I don't have to identify. These are demons that are hostile because I've embarrassed their partners on the internet. And you are under the law going to identify yourself. American citizens are empowered to document an entity that is keeping you under surveillance and furtherance of murder. And it is an additional federal charge regarding your going to prison and your terrorist leader, Mike LORENZ, going to prison regarding that pattern of conduct, committed with the intent to obstruct justice. Notably, while I'm documenting on my podcast, The Fake Sun at 9:35 and 4:14 p.m. This is relevant to what is no investigation by Jason Isaac Fields for over 7 years. There's no investigation there. Upon paying attention to what it is that I've been pointing out, the pattern of conduct is very clear. Regardless of the demonic features, upon paying attention to the pattern of conduct, it is very clear. It's very clear. Because the entity is the entity is relying upon the fact that nobody listened. As long as you don't listen, as long as you just write it off, just discard it as mental illness, don't listen to her, she's crazy, don't listen to that. And you listen to a demon that's gang stalking wearing a police uniform, asking questions, impliedly suggesting that there's mental illness by a target individual that you're stalking while you have a gun on your hip, that's federal prison. With regard to a kidnapping that this entity is utilizing with regard to defaming on the online, and you are a whole vagina monitor, you stalk me in helicopters. That's how psychotic you are. No one is persuaded by what that psychopath said. And she did so with a bold face and an aggressive demeanor, as though that's supposed to make Satan authoritative. Because they commit kidnapping in that same manner, with that same disposition, they're going to prison. They're terrorists. They're terrorists that are accustomed to bullying. They're terrorists that are accustomed to trying to confuse and make appear an ordinary target individual as though they're flustered and they don't know it, when no, I didn't ask you to be here. And why are you still, what are you talking about? There's no volume. That's what I'm getting at. What are you talking about asking me questions that don't even make any sense? Because I'm not speaking to her in this volume. I'm speaking to, because you're in my face now, we're talking, oh, you want to have an exchange? I'm definitely going to capture that on video. And so literally my volume immediately goes down. So why are you still remaining in my face? This is an entity that is passive aggressive, this micro-aggressive conduct, trying to find some way to stay in my presence, trying to find some way to try to convey the notion of mental illness when your mental illness is on the outside. It's literally on the outside of your uniform. Like you've been wiping your anus with your t-shirt. Because you are the one that is under all circumstances delusional. You're psychotic. They know that you're stalking me as an agency and all of that audible activity. All of that exercise of fictitious authority in the specific environment. While I'm documenting the P.O.C. and you are hostile, threatening to commit kidnapping and engaging in criminal defamation, which I documented. Because that's exactly what you're getting to. Do you know where you're at? You're in my presence and you don't even have a right to under the law. The law that you're exercising authority under fictitiously and maliciously. It is the P.O.C. Just like what Jay Sandoval is doing under the fake sun at that same side of that Ovid Family Community Library. Those gang members that are stalking me, monitoring me while they give their attention to a third party who's also gang stalking under the fake sun is the giveaway. Where that entity is stalking by helicopter at that same Ovid Family Community Library. And because the demons are hostile, because you're angry, because you want me to stop talking, you engage in conspicuous stalking like that, and the response is federal prison. You're going to federal prison for that. That's the exact pattern of conduct. And Securitas, these gang stalking, so-called security guards, they are a threat to the public. They're engaged in terrorism. They're not securing anyone. They are terrorizing. They're aiding in criminal activity. These are puppets who are going to prison. This is what American citizens are subject to. And the entity, again, drastically escalates. What's supposedly a noise complaint, criminal summoning. I don't care if they stated you're parked in front of somebody's property for a prolonged period of time where the entity is exercising fictitious property rights, such as being private property, and you're on the you're parked outside of the curb, and they call the police because somebody's inside in front of their house in the street, and they're scared because somebody's they're staying out there and they won't move. The entity is monitoring. Okay, this is the entity that's engaging in monitoring, and they're doing so upon what is criminal summoning. It does not change, even when you think that those are circumstances that you think they would have, the police have authority under. They do not. They're engaged in criminal surveillance. It remains criminal surveillance. This is the same entity while you're sitting in your car, by the way, in the middle of the street. Okay, but I just want to be clear. Under the law, understand, and this is what's going to be recognized under federal law with regard to what is exposed, terrorism. The entity that's engaging in the pattern of conduct is doing so while they're engaging in surveillance of evidence, surveillance of American citizens, surveillance of every private space while they want to maintain the guise of privacy. And it does not coexist. Okay, the entities engaging in that pattern of conduct while they are relying on that illusion of privacy, that's how you engage in criminal summoning. But the reality is you're stalking that American citizen that's on the street, not on their property, by the way. I'm just giving you because technically you're talking about what is the reality. You could stand on their front lawn because it's not private property. They're engaged in surveilling you while they're where they live, where they pay their rent, they pay their mortgage. They're engaging in surveillancing you in the shoes of the state while the fake sun's over you. That's not private property. Just want to break that down for you. But nonetheless, while they utilize this illusion, they're engaging in what is surveilling you by helicopter, by planes, knowing exactly who you're at. And then those feces consumers engage in criminal summoning. So we got a call because you're sitting outside of somebody's house, and we just want to find out, what's going on, everything okay? All right, do you know where you're at? Okay, you're going to need to leave, because if you don't leave, then we're going to arrest. They're engaged in the pattern of conduct. They're engaged in surveillance. You are not exercising authority under the law. You're exercising authority that you do not lawfully have. And they're doing so relying upon your ignorance about surveillance. They're doing so relying upon the fact that it's literally in a vacuum. Because you hear me on my podcast, because I'm passionately litigating, because I'm referring to what is the outrageous conduct of this entity, of these demons, of these thieves, all these vagina monitors, these stalkers. that are hostile because they're listening to me speak to the fact that you're not going to steal $1, that you're not going to rob anything, you're not getting away with anything, nobody's ignorant, nobody's going to be looking like it's a mystery, nobody knows it. None of that's going to happen because you're angry about that, and you're angry about the volume with which I'm declaring the truth, that you're imagining what's going to be the outcome here because you are in fact mentally ill. This is an entity that engages in those tactics. Okay, it has nothing to do with my volume, by the way. In fact, the P.O.C. is what supersedes, regardless of my volume. And the entity is engaging what is defamatory audible activity by an agency that is stalking, including on this podcast tonight. And is stalking now. Those puppets of Satan are monitoring while they pace toward me and back toward their vehicles, threatening to commit kidnapping in doing so. Kidnapping. You're pacing an engineer light. You're going to a mental asylum. You are imagining that no one sees you for what you are. And you are imagining that anybody but you looks mentally ill. These are demons that are trying to cover up their rancid, putrid, pungent odor of feces by wearing a uniform. You eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everybody knows that you're wearing diapers stalking me. And you are imagining that no one is aware of all of the evidence that surrounds you while you engaged in criminal summoning and referring to my volume. My volume, that is not the case when they're at that same Ovid Family Community Library, stalking with the same old people at the 280 North Lemon Apartments, doing so while they're claiming that, oh, it's not that I said something, it's not my volume, it's that you were standing there and they just want to make sure that you're okay. That's the entity that's engaging in what is malicious conduct. And those are the same circumstances where demons engage in pulling their weapons and killing you and stating that you pose some sort of threat to them, stating that you were engaged in some sort of violent conduct, where they're turning on and off their body cams, where they are testifying and supporting each other's lies, where the people of the state are lying and bearing false witness against you and your character as well, where that entity's been gang stalking you for a prolonged period of time, manufacturing what is a paper trail regarding criminal defamation to support what is the loss of life of an American citizen that's being targeted. Okay, that's the P.O.C. license plate. BL59 Robert 32. This is the entity that is gang stalking, doing so at the 280 North Lemon Apartments, engaged in criminal summoning. These old people that are living off of Social Security, they're living off of government assistance. They will not be receiving any government assistance. Okay, I'm prosecuting the entire city of Ontario in neighborhoods and apartment complexes, property management companies like speaker companies, Avenaf Capital, the city of Ontario that are engaging in the pattern of conduct while you are at the same time receiving government benefits. You're not receiving those government benefits. And I just want to be clear, this is how an entity is going to be prosecuted with regard to the many policies, because you can't put every elder that belongs in federal prison gang stalking further into murder. They belong in federal prison, but that's not practicable. But what you will do, you'll touch everybody with regard to receiving government assistance to pay their rent, because their daughters and their sons who are demons, who are out here gang stalking in the world like they are at their old ages, receiving government assistance that you're not going to get, because no terrorist is going to receive any government assistance from the government to pay your rent, to buy food. You're not getting any of that. This is an entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct while they are engaged in criminal summoning. And the entity, you are engaging in it when the entity is referring to you as the reason why they're in an American citizen's presence. And you know that that's intentional. They're flying over these old people with planes, with helicopters, keeping the fake sun over that apartment complex, where these old people are engaged in criminal summoning with the fire department and AMR, just like I documented days ago, where the entity is engaged in that, when they're engaging in what is that ongoing pattern of conduct together, and it is proven through that environment. Okay, the concerted nature of that pattern of conduct is proven through that environment, including while the entity refers to you. Okay, I just want to be clear on that, because that's how that sorry, I was wiping my phone off. That's how that pattern of conduct actually works, that's how it operates. The entity is never going to refer to me with regard to engaging in criminal summoning, because they know I'm not part of their little gist. I will prosecute you and I will clearly prove that you're lying as well. Okay, that's what's relevant regarding the entity that is clearly admitting to engaging in criminal summoning, stating that you have the phone number that is relevant to evidence of criminal summoning, not evidence that you're not gang stalking. That's not the issue there. You're going to federal prison regarding the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct together, and the people of the state that are gang stalking with the city of Ontario, that's maintaining plane activity and helicopter activity, engaging in criminal summoning, engaging in what is psychopathic pacing with the demons that are even outside of that apartment building. They are engaging in that pattern of conduct, and they will be touched with things such as federal policy, where you are a documented gang stalker in the entire apartment complex, the entire city of Ontario, including the elderly, who are not going to be treated differently under federal law. In fact, it is, again, public policy that you never receive any government assistance as a terrorist, a domestic terrorist targeting in the way that the city of Ontario is, of all ages. Okay, the city of Ontario has been engaged in targeting for years, and they're doing so with the entity that seeks to obstruct justice. Okay, and while the fake sun's over economy in, as a matter of duration of time analysis, what is 9:35 a.m. until 4:14 p.m., there is no provision that the sun would ever be over the 280 North Limit Apartments and the Ovid Family Community Library, the Ontario Town Square, the same plaza. But that's exactly what's on the record. While they are targeting, they are in fact targeting, and the entity is targeting, sharing, in other words, with a threat. While the entity refers to you as the one that called them, that's that same entity that's targeting. That's the entity that's engaging in what is that pattern of conduct, while they are together engaging in what is seeking to obstruct justice, while you're exposing all of them, including while the fake sun's over economy in, from 4:14 p.m. until 9:35 a.m. And by until, I mean the fact that it's present at 4:14 p.m., it's impossible that that will be the sun. Even though I captured it, that's capturing the illusion at 9:35 in the morning. You are stalking, and they are all stalking right here where they're engaging in criminal summoning. And they've done the exact same thing with far less, such as I'm not stating a word. Okay, this is the entity that is engaging in whatever it is that they believe that they can use to engage in harassing you and targeting you and threatening you, psychologically torturing you. Okay, the so-called captain, that's reciting her badge number and stating, oh, we have much more important things to do. I am everything to the Ontario Police, and everybody knows that as well. That's why you're spending thousands, which would be millions of dollars, on stalking by helicopter. The entity would like to suggest that they are the least concerned about me, but the pattern of conduct speaks otherwise. You're lying about what is the real nature of your presence in my path speaks otherwise. The absence of information regarding your being engaged in criminal surveillance, being enraged because I'm referring to federal stalking, which you are in violation of, and trying to engage in some sort of bullying conduct because of that, that speaks differently to the fact of the matter. The pattern of conduct by the entire agency, stalking me at the bus stop on video for over an hour, and you would like it to be the case that, first of all, nobody recall that. Don't talk about that's different. Don't talk about that part. Forget about that video, that day, that moment in time, because right now is what we're focused on. Right now, okay, we're here because you are speaking loudly, and you all are listening to me on my podcast, so this is supposed to be legitimate. This is different. This isn't gang stalking. This is because I myself am, in fact, being really loud, and they're not engaging in the pattern of conduct, so this is different. While they also want to throw in what is criminally defamatory audible activity, as though not only do I know where I'm at, I know what's going to happen to them in the future, and it includes prison. I know exactly where I'm at, and I know what is not occurring in the natural environment, which is this light activity, and at this same venue where the sun is rising and setting. I also know that no headlights of the demons that they're gang stalking me with creates multiple shadows and vacillating light activity across the wall, while they're running back to, and by running, I don't mean literally running, but by running, they're cockroaches. So they are pacing back to their vehicle after engaging in what is a wealth of audible activity creation to communicate a threat, psychologically torture, and to engage in what is harassment with the intent to obstruct justice. And you're going to prison for that. That was the agency itself engaging in criminal defamation. They also accomplish that when they kidnap you. For example, under the municipal code, when your criminal activity is the reason why an American citizen is sleeping outside, which is not a violation of that municipal code, that entity that's engaging in that and then engaging in what is a kidnapping, they also defame you when your name is on the internet and that agency is behind what is your recorded act of being kidnapped, and that is flipped as criminal activity that you have committed. All right, that's speaking to what is a mark that is denigrating your name and character. That's serving for what is the pattern of conduct seeking to steal money and property from me, trying to depict me as a criminal in court hearings that I'm not even a part of, regarding criminal acts that they've already committed. Oh, see, she is a criminal. She was arrested on December 19th because she's out there being, unstable and sleeping outside and messing with the police, man. She's always engaging in this and she's always getting in trouble. She got picked up again. See, there she goes again. She was harassing people at the Ontario Town Square. She was engaging, yelling at people in the bathroom. She's trying to break into the building over off of Palm and F Street, okay? We had to make a call for that. All right, this is an entity that's engaged in, they're targeting, they're literally stalking. And the entity wants to, based on the volume that I'm recording my podcast, no, this is the pattern of conduct, and this is the entity that seeks to obstruct justice. And some feces consumer that engaged in what is documented criminal defamation, Mike LORENZ is going to prison, and so are those demons. All of them refusing to identify themselves except for the one identifying herself as some sort of authoritative figure. No, you're not. You're not an authoritative figure, and because you commit kidnapping does not make you an authoritative figure. And these demons that are gang stalking at the Ovid, I am at the Family Community Library, the 280 North Lemon Apartments, that they are presumably referencing as with regard to who's within earshot and who I'm disrupting. This is the entity that is monitoring me with that police department, with that airport, that's engaging in what is an actual nuisance. And because I am documenting you, and it's also, I just want to be clear, because I could be as loud as possible. When I start talking about that fake sun over economy in, that's when the demons showed up. Okay, I just want to be clear on that. But the entity, that's just getting to recognizing the targeting tactics when you pay attention to my evidence, and I told you to pay attention to that. It's not just the fact of where I'm at, the environment where I'm at, the behavioral pattern of the entity in that environment where I'm at. It's also what I do as I do it, what I say as I say it, because you're recognizing the demons that are keeping me under surveillance, everything that I say and do. Okay, the entity will also run 6,500 miles into a federal case, just like these demons did with regard to what is seeking to try to harass and terrorize because of something that they don't want me to talk about. Not only am I going to talk about it, I'm going to use it with regard to what is an ongoing pattern of conduct to exemplify that pattern of conduct that's putting that terrorist leader, Mike LORENZ, in prison. And I'm also going to refer to it with regard to what is evidence of, in fact, criminal surveillance, because there's no coincidences here, especially in the specific environment. The entity is stalking by the airport that has no planes from Terminal 2 or 4 that would even be in the sky space, let alone in that elevation, creating that audible noise. And the entity is focusing on me while I am speaking to what is very damning information, evidence, which is speaking to no actual investigation ever by Jason Isaac Fields. He is a thief, and he's been relying on the criminal conduct of the entity that's stalking. Pay attention. Because this is the entity that was talking about they got a noise complaint and that they were going to engage in what is a kidnapping. It's already on video and it's going on the internet. And those demons are going to federal prison. I just want to be clear. This is an entity that's engaging in that level of delusional conduct. You're stalking, and then you're stalking when you're in my face. And then you're still stalking when you walk away. That ongoing stalking continues. And so you're engaging in that while you have the audacity to be in my face and try to convey the notion of mental illness. That's criminal defamation, which is a threat to my life while they exercise authority that they don't have. Some unwarranted and patently absurd opinion, if you will, an observation. Oh, well, I observed that this is exactly how they do it. I observed that they didn't know where they were. They seemed discombobulated. They seemed confused. This is a lying feces consumer, a stalker, actually, stating that. That's how they do that. And I want to be clear, they're all stalking me in the specific environment, and I'm serving for what is diagnosing them. While you are stalking as an airport, that's a department stalking, and everything coming out of their face is an unlawful threat. It's relevant to psychological torture. It's relevant to malicious conduct while they're engaging in surveillance of what I am documenting on my devices in violation of Title 18, which those demons do not know. Okay? And you're angry as I refer to it, and I don't care. This is an entity that's engaging. I just want to be clear. That's the psychopathic conduct. The demons that won't stop stalking under a fake sun and won't stop stalking with engineered light, won't stop stalking in all the ways in which they also won't stop kidnapping. They won't stop harassing. They won't stop using that's all the demons do is engaging in surveillance. They gas up their vehicles. There's a lot of money, millions of dollars that the Ontario Police Department have been, I just want to be clear, spending on keeping me under surveillance and furtherance of murder. And they're also engaged in what is being compensated for targeting me. They are paid stalkers, and they literally engaged in stalking. Stalking is coexisting with what you just listened to them state. They're all stalking while they made those comments. You're analyzing the stalker. And they're doing so while the fake sun is over economy in January 1st, 2026 at 4:14 p.m., January 2nd, 2026 at 9:35 in the morning. And then I capture it on video over me while I get on the bus Omnitrans driving northbound on Euclid Avenue, where the evidence of the fake sun is already over me at the ARCO. 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, including remaining over me at the bus stop where that Ontario Police Department is committing kidnapping pursuant to stalking, proven by a fake sun. This is where the entity, all of that audible activity, do you know where you're at? What is your name? Are you okay? That's the entity that's seeking, you're not engaging in a health check. This is the entity that's subject to a health check. My prosecution is the health check of this department that's mentally ill. They don't have authority under the law. The P.O.C. is serving for what is a health check of the mentally ill that are engaging in criminal surveillance of the most absurd and demented means. While they call themselves what is engaging in what is some makeshift health check. That's what those questions are for. And that's criminal defamation under the law that they are violating while they're stalking wearing uniforms, which you only do in furtherance of murder, gang stalking. This is relevant to what is international criminal conduct. Okay, this is P.O.C. University of Laverne College of Law, Ontario City Hall. This is the entity that is, again, flying over the 280 North Limit Apartments. Speaking of what is the tone of my voice, the volume of my voice, while the entity is engaged in that ongoing nuisance, in fact, actually, while there are no planes, and the entity is going to be prosecuted for that malicious iteration of the people of the state and that agency engaging in targeting me together with the intent to obstruct justice, okay? The substance of that audible activity is what you're going to prosecute for, and this is at what is 9:14 p.m. This is the pattern of conduct. This is where the entity is stalking as that agency, and they're doing so with Securitas. This is a heavy-set Latino male with black glasses and a mustache. He's wearing the Securitas beanie and a blue button-down, black pants and black boots, and he's standing in engineer light. He's monitoring with the Ontario police, who are engaging in what is conspicuous stalking with the intent to obstruct justice, harass, threaten, and doing so with regard to psychological torture. While they are psychologically torturing someone that they're actually criminally monitoring under the guise of engaging in what are the execution of the duties of officers, that does not include federal stalking, Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. It includes none of that. It directly rebuts that, and you have been stripped of any due process rights. I'm going to prosecute this agency for terrorism, and they don't have any due process rights as police officers. When you are looking at that, it's mutually exclusive, and based on the established P.O.C., they're going to be prosecuted as the terrorists that they are. Okay, and they are being disbanded, and the entity is engaged in that conduct. While that airport is stalking, so is Securitas. While that entity is stalking by helicopter, so is Securitas, and that entity engaged in criminal summoning in concert with Securitas in that specific environment, and all of that is going to be published online. And the entity is doing that while they are relying on always harassment inside of the Ovid Family Community Library, demons engaged in gang stalking all day long, psychopaths pacing, monitoring. That's it. And they engage in more and more harassment while I document and use my devices. This is what they're doing while I'm outside. The entity does so with regard to what is criminal summoning, stalking with the planes and the helicopters, doing so in that specific environment. The same engineered light that's inside of a building, which is not explained away by artificial light inside of the building, and it's not explained by moonlight and artificial street lamps, artificial light outside. This is an entity that's engaged in surveillance, and the audacity of those feces consumers that all denied, refused to provide their badge numbers except for the demon that's calling herself some sort of authoritative figure while you're engaged in criminal activity. I just want to be clear, that same sort of disdain for the reality. The entity is literally accustomed to engaging in gang violence, and because of their position, they have a more authoritative stance, they have more power and influence, and they can engage in it because that's what that attitude is about. They are clearly on the wrong side of the law. They're engaging in blatant and conspicuous criminal activity, and they're doing so with that level of confidence that is speaking to impunity while they are surrounded with the evidence of the P.O.C. and no ongoing legitimate federal investigation. And no federal court is missing that, okay? So I just want to make sure that that's clear. That's the entity that's engaging in that with impunity with regard to what's supposedly a so-called investigation. The entity that's engaging in what is this impunity is not proof that they're not engaging in criminal surveillance, because that's literally what oh no, we're not engaging in surveillance, and this is an impunity. We're not targeting, and that's why we're still stalking in the same manner, because in fact, this isn't stalking. We always have plane activity over the city hall and over the town square and over the senior citizen apartment complexes and over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, taking off over there, hovering over that, and hovering over the roof of the Ovid Family Community Library, and hovering over the Stater Brothers as though we're taking off there off of Bonita, and hovering over Nevada and Euclid Avenue as though we're taking off there. We always do that, and we're going to continuously do that because it's the evidence directly contradicting what the targeted individual would assert, that we're stalking her or him, and we're not stalking her or him. In fact, we're going to keep on doing more of that, which is obvious with regard to what is not taken off from the terminals, with regard to what is not occurring in a vacuum in the specific environment, with regard to what is a documented pattern of targeting by that entity in that environment, by that government, And they're doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, and that's what the entity relies on. These are psychopaths who are hostile and engaged in what is harassment because I am speaking to what is their, again, delusional imagination. You're not going to pass go or collect $200. You're not going to steal $1. You're not going to commit any robbery. You're not going to do anything anonymously or mysteriously. The entity, including stalking by these gang members of the Ontario Police, documented every aspect of it, and you're going to serve the federal penalties for every aspect of it. In addition to that, you've lost out on a murder contract, and that death magic is coming back to you, and you're also going to prison. And that's not a figment of your imagination. That's actually what's happening. And nothing that the entity has committed is serving what is the successful end for their criminal pattern of conduct. None of this is conducive to successfully keeping money that you stole. It's already been seized. It's already been frozen. They already know who and what is involved, and you're not getting it back. And by the way, continuously gang stalking, the evidence proving that you're targeting in the first place, engaging in more of that targeting conduct, and engaging in what is more targeting conduct to harass me because it's being published, is not changing or converting or flipping or swapping that end result. Neither are you imagining that. That's actually happening. And harassment by those gang members is speaking to what is prison for everybody involved. Every act of criminal summoning, every act of stalking by that agency, literally. I'm documenting them stalking. You have Alex Escobar stalking at the U.S. Bank, 12:53 in the afternoon. The fake sun is over me at the West Valley Detention Center during daylight savings time as well, 12:53 in the afternoon. That's not the sun. That's speaking to surveillance that agency is engaging in, and then they are at nightfall while they are hostile. That's the reality. These demons are mad, and then they want to come engage in what is harassment, hostile, which no feces consumer can convey mental illness. You can't talk about anything regarding whether I know. Everybody's listening to how much I know. Everybody. And everybody also knows that you're stalking and that you wear diapers because you're so heavily stalking me. You must not be taking bathroom breaks while you want to seek to and fail at trying to convey mental illness toward another. When you're wearing that badge and engaging in exercise of fictitious authority, you're trying to engage in what is some sort of makeshift health check, when I'm actually the one conducting the health check regarding all the demons that are gang stalking, all the gargoyles hiding in uniforms that they're going to be stripped of. This is a health check regarding the demons that are unfit for law enforcement, the demons that are stalking in helicopters, very unfit conduct, very certifiable behavior. Because you're mad, which is relevant to your mental illness. That's what's behind the entity engaging in that. Don't miss it. I want to point that out to you because that's literally what they engage in, which is not equaling success. You're still not getting my money. You're still not going to get away with what they already know that you're lying. They already know that you lied. They already know that you know who I am. When you're acting like I'm missing, no, you committed kidnapping, and they know my documentation shows, oh yeah, I was kidnapped, and I was holding up these signs, and I'm on these cameras in this facility, and these are all the deputies that are pacing demons in that in that facility engaging in gang stalking demons. They know exactly where I was at, and so they know that you know that as well. It's already known. You are the one lying to yourself and stalking as a whole airport. The airport stalking, the entire state's being prosecuted. The police department stalking and exercising authority that you don't have. And everybody knows the people in the state that you're relying on, they know that those are gargoyles. So you're relying on, you got the phone number of a gargoyle, congratulations, they're going to prison. You're not winning a prize. You're going to prison for this. And because you stand up in front of me and foolishly, not boldly, foolishly, just like you do stalking in helicopter, foolishly, on the record, engaging in what is criminal conduct that nobody's imagining. You are engaging in what is conduct that's not ending well for you. Only you. You are not getting any money from being proven as a gang stalker. In fact, you're going to prison. And while you seek to criminally defame someone, that's within what is a whole system designed for what is trying to kidnap and murder me. You're going to prison. That's a threat to my life while you criminally defame me through your audible activity, while you're monitoring. That's prison. That's a psychopath that would like to convey the idea that I'm the least concerned, and you're lying. You're obsessed with my vagina. You're obsessed. Every move I make, you are obsessed, and nobody's imagining that either. That's the reality. That's the entity that's going to federal prison, because that is what an American citizen is subject to. And that's the entity that's engaging in that. While first of all, you've been embarrassed. Second of all, most importantly, aside from embarrassing you, you've been prosecuted. You've been surrounded with facts. And it's relevant to what the federal government has not been doing, which is investigating. This is the P.O.C., which is forcing a federal government to do that which it never intended to do, like I said from the beginning. Jason Fields is going to prison. He really counted on the demons that are targeting me in Ontario with Tracy Banks, who moved to Ontario. She moved to Ontario when she got kicked out of my apartment. She got kicked out by, because I'm moving out of my apartment, you're not going to pay the rent. She couldn't afford to pay that rent. I was paying all the bills and I was paying the rent. And when I filed my 30-day notice to get away from her, who was engaging what is abusing me, physically abusing me, and because I don't want to pound on this woman who I thought was my mother, okay, she's engaging in what is physical abuse and also what is harassing me inside of my own home. And then there's all the peculiar conduct of these demons who are stalking. This is bringing all the history of that pattern of conduct that I documented in 2018. Come to find out, she's having sex with Jason Fields, who's abusing a whole position in the government, who has information all of a sudden about money and property that I don't even know that I have. This is an entity that's engaged in that level of conduct, and I want to be clear, they're doing so while they are, first of all, at this end of the evidence, you're surrounded with it. You're surrounded with the proof when you thought your lies and kidnapping me by Ontario, because this is where Tracy Banks moved when she was kicked out of my apartment by necessity, because I moved out of my apartment. So she had to go. We were living in Upland. She moves to Ontario. Presumably because I didn't go with her. So as of June 2018, Jason Fields is having sex with my mother, and he's a fake friend of mine. The last time I see him is June 2nd, 2018, where he was gang stalking me with the Rialto Police Department. And this is somebody that's having a sexual relationship with Tracy Banks then. And then the sexual relationship is relevant to what is targeting me. They've linked up and they've become really good friends, sex buddies, in fact, a husband and wife, while they're cult members that engage in all manner of perverted and barbaric sex acts, having sex with animals, having sex with kids, having sex with people of the same gender, having group sex. This is what they're doing with regard to the practice of witchcraft. They're engaging in this while they're engaged in criminal conduct. And Tracy Banks relying on what is the Ontario Police Department. She moved to Ontario. So when I am going back to her apartment in what is December of 2018, after moving away, and also with regard to what is documentation, I'm documenting the entire time. This is somebody that's being targeted. I'm being targeted by the Ontario Police Department, and these demons really relied on the Ontario Police to handle this and contain this system. Tracy Banks is engaging in criminal summoning, calling the police. Oh, you got a missing persons report? This is the police that are stalking me by helicopter. That's malice. Okay, they know exactly where you're at. They're engaging what is threatening you, doing so under the guise of, oh, well, Tracy Banks put in a missing persons report, so that's why we're at her door, and it's not because we're stalking Erica Spencer. That's all implied in that. I'm sitting in the living room. Ontario police are at her door, and she's walking through a crossing path, gang stalking in the apartment, and the entity is engaging what is criminal summoning together. What's the criminal summoning basis? Oh, a missing persons report that Tracy Banks submitted. Tracy Banks, who's keeping me under surveillance, knows exactly who I am, lies about being me, stealing my identity, using my social security, stealing money from me, knows exactly who I am and where I'm at, and so do the Ontario police, who engage in and, in other words, respond to what is criminal summoning. A means of gang stalking someone, a means of psychologically torturing someone, a means of threatening someone without saying a word to them. Okay, in addition to the entity doing that in the specific environment, and you know the details of Woodside Senior Apartments, I captured it very heavily throughout 2024 and before 2024 as well. The evidence of the Woodside Senior Apartments is on the record. It's all over my YouTube channel, and it's all over my website in 2019, 2020. Of the entity stalking me by helicopter at Tracy Banks' apartment, and these demons would like to say, oh, we would love to do something way more important because you're the least important person. That's exactly what comes out of the mouth of a feces consumer, a gargoyle who's obsessed with my vagina. That's the reality. Nothing about my conduct either, by the way, is suggesting that there's a level of mental instability. This is an entity that's engaging and relying upon the appearance of the thing. And because the appearance is somebody that's in a police uniform is conveying those ideas, then that makes it so. That's gang violence. And it's referred to a federal offense. It's criminal defamation. Criminal defamation precedes murder committed as an entity. The government is defaming your character while they prep you to take your life, because they don't want any problems regarding what happened to you. They want to be, well, it's because they were a gang, because they were affiliated with gang. You could say that. They were gang members. If I was like, some sort of gang member, like they would like to stereotype a black male, for example, or even Latino males, the ethnic groups. They were gang violence. They were gang member. They were killed by gang violence, or a prostitute. That's why. I mean, it's obvious that this is automatic. She's dead. She's missing because she's a prostitute. She's missing because she's a drug addict. She's missing because she's a paranoid schizophrenic. We don't know where she's at, and that's probably why she was found dead on the side of the bed. This is the entity that engages in that, and that is joined in by Securitas. Okay, they call them, they threaten me together. The entity that's been stalking me for years, and again, is not thinking about that when they're engaged in that very obvious and conspicuous and very potent and plain evidence to go in court for everybody to go to prison. And I mean everyone. Any single last one of those gang members pulling their gun. And again, I just want to be clear, people losing their life for much less than that. That's also why you document. That level of a threat to your life, it's not sufficient, it's not enough that you prosecute after the fact. That's assuming that you live, assuming that you survive it. Because of the level of that threat, you're going to prison for it. Because of the criminal objective, you're going to prison for it. Because of the impossible circumstances that an American citizen has a right to not be subject to, meaning everybody lying on you, meaning the specific environment which nobody is ever supposed to. What I'm showing you is something that you never would have noticed. You never would have noticed it. Because of that, combined with what is stalking wearing a police uniform, that police uniform is designed, you have been conditioned to treat that as though everything that they say is gospel. Because when they stand in a court based on who they are and the training that they've had and the oath that they take, they shall not ever tell a lie. So when they say mental illness, when they say criminal, when they say wrongdoer, so it is. But they're the demons that are gang stalking. Ironically, they're the ones who are mentally ill, actually. They're the ones who are targeting with little brokies, passing around STDs like Tracy Banks and Jason Fields. They're actually lowlifes. They are the ones that sit around consuming poop. Because that's how crazy they are, stalking me, using their helicopters. It's not just that you're lying about me being the least important, the least of your concerns. Oh, no. It's the exact opposite. I am the key focus. They keep all of their helicopters and vehicles gassed up 24 hours a day. Because this is speaking to what is surveillance that's underway throughout the state. And the reality is when you're slicing through that illusion, such as the fake sun, not the natural environment, over the same location at one address, such as at 4:14 p.m. January 1st, 2026, and 9:35 a.m. January 2nd, 2026, the same address and the same person. That is documenting an ongoing pattern of targeting, like I'm documenting by those gang members who are again targeting American citizens with the unfettered discretion that they enjoy, which is unwarranted. It's absolutely unwarranted and it's dangerous, and that's going to change. The same level of malice with which they're targeting American citizens, that malice is going to be flipped on their head. It's going to be flipped on its head, excuse me. The same malice with which you're targeting, you're not going to have any due process rights in court. Upon establishing the P.O.C., and the Ontario International Airport is establishing it. And there's a whole body of evidence, but literally off the cuff, immediate analysis, the Ontario International Airport that's stalking, we're already in the P.O.C. territory. This is not a mysterious prosecution. I'm going to prosecute, and I mean federal prison. The entire Ontario Police Department is going to be gutted out. It's going to be disbanded, but I have documented so many of them, and they are going to prison. These are gang members that have conspired my murder together, pursuant to what is a surveillance system shared with a population. They are on video tonight. The podcast you listen to, these demons are pacing around in the video. You know what they're doing under the fake sun at the C Street turn circle when I'm walking in at 10 o'clock in the morning, when I'm walking in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when I'm walking out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when I'm showing you the sunset during daylight savings time after 6:30 p.m. You know what they're doing, and that's what they're doing in the engineer light, which I also captured on video. They're pacing, monitoring with a so-called police department. Those are cockroaches. Having the audacity, oh, you're going to prison for thinking that you're going to defame me. Everybody knows you eat poop. Who do you think that you are? You're a feces, you're a demon. And you're an angry stalker. And none of that, by the way, is hyperbole. The entities engaged in this, and I just want to be clear, Jason Fields hasn't been investigating anything. The federal government wasn't investigating. It doesn't take 7 years to put 2 and 2 together regarding what I've been documenting since 2018. It doesn't take that long. This is an entity that's been targeting. And by the way, while they're targeting, you're still stalking, and you ain't getting a dollar. You ain't getting a dollar, and I said it like that on purpose. You are not getting $1. Un dolore. No, you're not getting nothing. Nunca. Settle. You're not getting anything. And stalking and gang stalking, that's not going to do it. Stalking as an airport while you're being documented, that's called foolish. That's called idiotic. That's called incriminating. And it's not just incriminating that airport. That's incriminating everybody, including the feces consumers that stood around me with guns on their waist, refusing to identify themselves while they're acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to murder and criminally defame. While I'm in full exercise of my constitutional rights, with these old bats that are not getting government assistance. When I'm done with the city of Ontario, there's going to be a lot of homeless old people. That's justice. Because the federal government will not be paying. You will not be a recipient of it. And I don't have to understand, I'm going to know who you are. The federal government's going to know who you are. They know that you're gang stalking at that entire apartment complex. And you can also thank the Ontario International Airport for that. That's what you manifested. You're not getting a dollar. And you also aren't getting any benefits to pay your rent. Nobody cares that you can't afford to get your treatment for your liver spots while you're gang stalking somebody in furtherance of murder. And then trying to intimidate and threaten them while you are the whole psychopath. No, you're demons, and you have the audacity to not know your place. Nobody cares about your feelings. Your feelings are demented. This is an entity that engaged in that. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because this is relevant to the entity that is stalking me. They're stalking me with the whole environment, talking about, do I know where I'm at? Well, that's what they're going to be asking you when you are arrested and you're placed in federal prison. Do you know where you're at? Are you aware of where you're at? Do you understand what's happened? That's the type of question, the questionnaire you're going to be subject to. Because the reality is that these are demons who are absurdly psychopathic, seeking to present as being sane, and they're not. These are puppets of Satan. These are pacing cockroaches. They are psychotic. Trying to present as some authoritative figure, trying to present as somebody that couldn't be least interested in targeting me, all right? You're just doing it because I'm such a problem. Those are the demons that are stalking me day and night, which you all know, by helicopter. Millions of dollars are stalking me, keeping me under surveillance. Proven as I go from city to city to city to city to county, while you're sitting here with a bad act. And that bad act is going to be used to diagnose you because they know you have problems. Nobody is fooled by your defamatory narrative in the engineer light while you're monitoring me, and the demons are stalking in planes. Nobody forgot about that. They're going to analyze what you're saying, what you're representing expressly and impliedly, and what you're actually doing. You're going to be diagnosed. You who gave your badge number and you who didn't. And your boss, head demon, Mike LORENZ, is going to prison. And you clearly don't care about that. This is an entity, that's how obsessed with me they are. Because they're going to prison, and they willingly take that jump every day. That's how obsessed with me they are, contrary to what you're stating. You could not be more obsessed with me and my vagina. You could not be more obsessed with me. This is the P.O.C. So I want to make sure that that's clear. This is an entity that's engaging in that, and this is, again, the entity that's doing so while they are keeping every ounce, every syllable, every bathroom session under surveillance. You're going to comb through, just like any other medical professional that's engaging in what is a thorough and legitimate diagnosis regarding any sort of mental illness that is present. I am presenting to you what is the malice of this P.O.C. You're going to analyze what is the actual pattern of conduct, meaning you know what they're actually doing, and then you're going to analyze what it is that they seek to convey and what is wrong with the person that would engage in that. And they're doing it as a population, which is speaking to what is a threat to the public, while you're engaging what is very, very malicious and psychopathic conduct as a pattern. And then the delusional feature, because all the evidence is on the internet, meaning there's a whole audience watching you and your downfall. And what do you think? Who do you think you're tricking? Who do you think who do you think who's believing? Who do you think is listening to that? Who do you think does not know what's going on? This is an entity that's engaging in that. And then they're still stalking as I go from place to place, and nobody's missed that. While you're listening to and you're analyzing, this is the level of mental illness that is to be assessed through the facts and circumstances, just like you would when a patient is going into your office voluntarily or involuntarily, and you are assessing what is their responses, their behavior, what it is that they are exuding with regard to what are the indicators regarding mental illness. This is what the entity is doing while they're stalking wearing police uniforms, while they are stalking engaging in the pattern of conduct, and they're doing so ostensibly to the ignorance of everybody else, because it's all supposed to be normal every day and nobody knows what's going on. Not only is that relevant to diagnosing their mental illness, those of you who are legitimately engaged in the practice of medicine, and I'm showing you the malice of the demon-possessed, who need to be identified, it's also relevant to their mental illness while they're doing it. Remember, they're keeping the evidence about them that's exposing them under surveillance. So you're doing it, and you know that people are aware that everybody's watching you do it, and you're still doing it. So now who are you tricking? Oh, this is concerning. Who is it that you think you're tricking? What is it that you're trying to do now? Because you're certainly not doing it in secret. What is it that you think in your mind? What are you telling yourself that you're accomplishing here? What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you're talking to about, do I know where I'm at? You have poo on your breath. Like you just got through eating a turd. Are you kidding me? You are stalking my vagina. I can't go into the bathroom and pull my panties down without a stalker chasing me in there. And they're stalking with that agency, spending millions of dollars. There's no mystery there. So what do you think you're accomplishing? The helicopter, you can rewind the tape before they engage in criminal summoning. They're stalking by helicopter. This is the same pattern of conduct, ceaselessly underway. What do you think, who do you think you're tricking? Like, what do you think somebody doesn't see? Like, what dots do you think people are missing? Like, what money do you think you're going to get? What success do you see happening on the horizon where that fake sun is rising, huh? What is it that you are telling yourself, psycho? What are you telling yourself? That's relevant to diagnosing, okay? Because this is what you need to be aware of. This is an entity that presents propaganda to the masses, while actually the majority are severely mentally ill, seeking to present as sanity, as normalcy. This is the liar that wants to establish the standard. Okay, I just want to be clear. I hope that you recognize that, because that's exactly what that is, and I'm not fooled by it, and neither is anybody else that is listening to my voice on this podcast, because everybody knows that these are demons who are gang stalking, and I'm not speaking in any sort of riddles, and it's very plain and clear. Even those that don't want to believe it are very much triggered because of the truth that I speak and the clarity with which I speak it. You're pissed off because you know that not only is it the evidence proving it, I'm good at proving it. That's what you're mad about. Coming around harassing me was the dumbest thing that but you're not, I mean, you're feces consumers, so this is what you do every day. You're stalking on helicopter again on another day. 2026, you're starting off strong, psych. All right? This is an entity that knows exactly what you're going on. So that's relevant to, again, that's also relevant to their mental illness. So that's what I want to state. This is an entity that's not engaging in any investigation. Jason Isaac Fields was never engaged in any investigation. He's been engaged in targeting me, lying on my character, doing so with his sex partner, Tracy Banks, acting with the state. Tracy Banks has been engaged in, I've already rolled her up like a burrito. She's going to prison. Okay? This is getting to the entity that's acting with the rest of them. Because I can litigate the case, the argument for any of them because it's an entity. Jason Isaac Fields shares in the pattern of conduct that Tracy Banks is documented for. You are prosecuting criminal conspiracy, group conduct that is connected through the specific environment. Nobody's forgetting the sun over the same location, 4:14 p.m. and 9:35 a.m. That is a direct indicator regarding everything that's happening there. Everything. You're not disconnecting that. Okay, so we are all looking up in the environment and looking and becoming aware of what is a pattern of conduct. And those gang members that are sitting around masquerading, stalking as a police department, pacing around me, stalking, and then talking about a noise disturbance, talking about the municipal code, talking about section 602 trespassing, while you're stalking me, Satan. You are stalking. You're delulu. It doesn't get any sicker than that. And it is no joking matter, even though I can put it in a manner where we can all laugh at Satan, and that's fine. Do that. But understand that this is very serious. They murder people. And they do so, just like you hear these demons do, they do so like they have the right to do so. They do so like they didn't just commit a crime. And they are. They are accustomed to getting away with it. They're not accustomed to anyone actually knowing the truth and being able to prove it. Because remember, the truth is unbelievable. The truth is the fake sun. The truth is the engineered light. The truth is stalking in things like planes and helicopters. The truth is too much for you to even like enter. Like what? Exactly. That's by design. But guess what that points to? It points to their mental illness. That points directly back at them. They have literally manifested prison terms and asylums. You manifested being impoverished and being homeless. You manifested, in other words, being a brokey, trying to criminally defame in a uniform. I'm taking that uniform and I'm taking that career. You're done with law enforcement, not just fired. You're never going to be in law enforcement. You are a documented terrorist, an enemy, in case you did not know that. It's very un-American to engage in terrorism in the United States. Very un-American. And there is no name calling and there is no bullying that's going to make you seem like you're some authority figure. Okay, excuse my French, but I piss on you in that effort to try to do so. You're a stalker. Trying to glorify yourself, it's pathetic. And you're sitting up listening to me and you're triggered by the truth because I don't care about what you want to call yourself. As if I'm going to. You don't know what federal stalking is. You can't spell representation. You don't know what the municipal code actually means. Because under the municipal code and the spirit of such laws, you don't gang stalk somebody and then try to enforce it. You don't stalk somebody and then, oh, we got a noise complaint. We'll use that to be in their face and conspicuous. That's not a violation of the law. You remain the criminal. And that's speaking to what is the malice of this criminal surveillance that you're engaged in the first place. You're delusional. You're delusional. You're corrupt. And that's not intimidating. That's not powerful. That's not authoritative. It's cowardly. It's despicable. It's pathetic. And it's perverted as well. Because everybody knows with regard to gang stalking, you're keeping my vagina under surveillance. You're no authoritative figure. You're a sex offender. All right, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging in that. And I would just want to make sure that that is all abundantly clear. While the entity is engaging what is harassing me, these are a bunch of demons that aren't getting $1. Okay, and they're going to prison for every dollar that they stole at that. While the entity is gang stalking as an agency, you're mindful of the people of the state that are going to prison. They're engaged in pacing in this video that I captured. That's the people of the state are going to prison for criminal summoning with the Ontario Police Department, with any police department. The demons at Alvarado Gardens engaged in criminal federal group stalking and monitoring in furtherance of murdering the property manager. Okay, doing so while through the criminal facilitation of speaker companies, hiring me so that you can gang stalk me on the job, while the entity's claiming things like they don't know where I'm at, that I'm missing. All right, people stealing my identity, committing criminal acts in my name, while I'm documenting the pattern of conduct that I'm subject to, while this entity's trying to murder me before and gang stalking me and furtherance of that, sponsored by LAPD. Helicopter act, that while you're in Ontario gang stalking, nobody forgot that they're delusional. You're going to prison. You are going to federal prison, and you're going to federal prison. You're going in that area, the special area where they talk to that lady every day. And that lady, she's going to be on her job. Okay, talking about, do you know where you're at? Do you understand what happened and why you're here? Do you want to talk about it? How about Erica Spencer? How do you feel about her? Those are the type of questions you're going to have. Okay? While you are, in fact, getting the attention that you need. This is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, and they're doing so while they are, under all circumstances, engaging in what is the absurdity of gang stalking and then trying to defame somebody else. Gang stalking is the outward demonstration of mental illness by those who are demon possessed. And that is proven through their criminal pattern of conduct, and it's proven through the environment that is supernatural. Like I said, it is undeniable. The entity that is stalking under the fake sun at Economy Inn, fake sun at 4:14 p.m., there is no sun that's going to be over that same hotel, not even the same sky space, nowhere near that at 9:35 in the morning. That is me capturing for you, if you are having a hard time fathoming in your mind what is demonic, what is supernatural, what is relevant to the spiritual realm, what is relevant to the satanic features of this malicious pattern of conduct where demons think that they can wear a police uniform and that they're engaging in any sort of influence over how I am perceived over social media and on the internet while I'm prosecuting you. This is my health check that I'm conducting on them. It's not the other way around. That's literally what these little feces consumers try to do. And then they engage in kidnapping and harassment because they're mad, because they're embarrassed. And you're going to prison for that. And they're putting their own boss in prison. This is how psychotic they are. That's how obsessed they are in reality. Because Mike LORENZ is going to prison. Every time you call yourself getting retaliation, he's going to prison. Genius. This is the P.O.C. It's currently 9:49 p.m. at the Ovid Family Community Library, 215 E.C. Street. Now, you're mindful of this when I'm documenting, when I'm capturing images, when you're looking at that PDF of all the demons that are gang stalking inside of that Ovid Family Community Library. Many of their names you've been acquainted with. Alexander, Alex, he committed kidnapping on June 16, 2022. Yeah, he's a part of the entity that's gang stalking, claiming that I molested a child. Oh, put a pin on that. Put a pin in that. Because we're going to revisit that with regard to the established terrorism of the Ontario Police Department, with whom they're engaging in what you documented tonight, what I documented tonight, criminal summoning, while they're doing so under the fake sun, both stalking by helicopter and then engaging in criminal summoning while the entity is then committing criminal acts that are documented, such as kidnapping. Kidnapping. You're engaged in kidnapping while you're stalking, and those are demons that are hostile to my evidence that I'm publishing on the internet. And not only did that still get published, I'm still documenting that same pattern of conduct as of 2026, and you're delusional. It's only in your sickened imagination that you're not going to prison. You're also not getting $1 from me. Neither is that ever going to reasonably occur from gang stalking somebody, and it's not a secret. You forfeited that a long time ago. You're having a hard time accepting that. And you're going to be diagnosed because of it as well. I just need to make sure I underscore all of that, because this is what an entity is deciding to do. Both eyes open, okay? Yes, they are mentally ill, but psychopathic behavior is not that which they lack the ability to appreciate the criminality. They don't lack the ability to recognize the impropriety. They are not without the faculties to recognize what is right and what is wrong, what is improper as an agency. The very malice of the pattern of conduct is speaking to, they know exactly what's right and wrong. They know exactly what's lawful and unlawful. They even know what's socially acceptable and unacceptable, like being demons. They know that. So you are clearly imagining things. You're clearly delusional. When they see all this demonic conduct and you think that somebody doesn't know that you're a whole demon and a criminal, you're imagining. Your imagination has gotten you into a pickle. And the entity is engaging in what is unprecedented criminal conduct in the United States. It is establishing what is, in fact, domestic terrorism. And you're going to prison for these things. Just want to be clear on that. Let's go ahead and conclude with the entity stalking at 9:51 p.m. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and I'm taking pictures of. It's over the Ontario Senior Center. Remember, the entity that is flying west, you're not flying west from the Ontario airport at 2500 Airport Drive, which is south of Hope Boulevard. You are necessarily flying at some angle to fly northwest and then hovering over the apartment complex. This is the entity that's engaging in that while they, again, are openly exposing mental illness. They are openly exposing corruption. They are stalking as a police department at this same venue. They're doing so in the engineered light, and they're also doing so with the level of impunity that is requiring what is federal prison. And this is the entity that is delusional with regard. They are also exposing, I just want to be clear, internationally speaking, the city of Ontario, the state of California is engaged in criminal conduct against me with those that are in other countries around the world. Okay, this is international. This is literally terrorism. The domestic terrorists in this country, okay, homegrown terrorists that are cooperating with terrorists outside of this country. even immigrating into this country to target, to engage in surveillance, betraying American citizens. Doing so as a whole airport, the Ontario International Airport is being shut down. It's a threat to national security, including their mental illness is a threat to national security. I just want to make sure that that's clear. The entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct and engaging in a documented pattern of kidnapping and criminal summoning with the gang members of the Ontario Police Department. Those are thugs. Those are not police officers. All right? Those are frauds. Those are sex offenders. They're vagina monitors. They are the exact opposite of what those uniforms are supposed to cloak them in. They're literally engaging in witchcraft before your eyes. Okay? They're trying to cloak themselves as one thing when they are actually the other. It is entirely satanic. And that which is satanic is manifesting in what is criminal conduct for you to witness it. Because the demons are not able to hide anymore. And they're going to prison with regard to what is stalking, engaging in criminal defamation, engaging in what is psychological torture, while they are bearing weapons and exercising fictitious authority and vocalizing, not just impliedly, but expressly communicating a threat to commit kidnapping upon federal group stalking and monitoring, which is also relevant to the stalking by the Ontario International Airport at the Ovid Family Community Library at 9:51 p.m. And I've been documenting that ongoing psychopathic pacing for the past few hours on this podcast in images and on video. You're going to prison for that. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and what's relevant, what's the policy? Like I stated, you're going to prison in the United States for gang stalking with police officers that are not actually police officers, and they will be addressed accordingly. Upon the pattern of conduct, you're not a police officer, you're a domestic terrorist. And you're not a police chief, you're a domestic terrorist leader. Terrorist leaders like Osama bin Laden, they go to prison. You're going to prison, Mike Lorenz. I've said it before and I'll say it again. And Derek Williams, this is somebody that's engaged in kidnapping me as well. There's no statute of limitations. There's no time where, okay, well, I'm out of it. I'm not going. No, Mike Lorenz ain't going by himself. You're going to prison. I've said it very plainly, and the entity that is stalking by commercial planes, you're going to prison. That's establishing relevant evidence regarding the pattern of conduct which you're engaging in, which is relevant to and providing legally relevant context of all the audible activity of these gang members, these criminals that are engaging in what is criminal conduct while wearing police uniforms, the highest threat that an entity poses. Indeed, committing murder while wearing a uniform, however, it's addressed in a different manner. You're going to prison for that. This is P.O.C. It's currently 9:55 p.m. at the Ovid Family Community Library at 215 East C Street. The entity engaging in this pattern of conduct while they are monitoring evidence that the entity seeks to, the evidence that the entity is, first of all, keeping under surveillance, but also is engaging in what is targeting me in real time as I publish it, as I document it. That's the helicopter activity, and then that's the plane activity, and then that's the entity engaging in criminal summoning. All right, that's why I'm always giving context about what I'm doing. In addition to the fact that you know that they're targeting, they're doing it under the fake moon and the fake sun. These objects, these articles, these ornaments in the sky that seem to remain over me all day long while a whole bunch of demons are pacing all around me. These demons that have ran out of ideas because once they got caught gang stalking with the way in which I've shown you, all they know how to do is continuously do that. Clearly deviating from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4. Flying west, you weren't flying west from the Ontario International Airport. The Ontario International Airport is not a straight shoot west from the airport to the Ontario City Hall where you're hovering. You have to fly in a diagonal manner northwest, and when you're taking off, you are not going to be at that elevation. You're not going to engage in what is a nuisance with this plane activity and at that elevation. And you're also doing so relevant to what it is that I'm stating that you don't like that I'm stating. Nobody's missing this. You're a stalker and you're going to be analyzed accordingly. And because you believe and you conduct yourself, in other words, as though you can engage in terrorism in the United States and then seek to just continuously terrorize and abusing your authority, that's relevant as well with regard to your being identified as an enemy in this country and one that is hostile to actual law and order, which is also requiring that you go to prison in every regard. You are exposing yourself as an enemy and a threat to the public. And because you believe that you're going to continuously engage in that in the face of evidence showing that you are on the wrong side of the law. It is a matter of record what you decided to do upon being exposed. And you're being disbanded in Ontario. You're being disbanded, but you're not the only one. All right? This is the P.O.C. It is currently not. I just want to show you the Ontario International Airport. That's again engaging in what is stalking flying in west right here. The Ontario International Airport is south of Holt Boulevard. Holt Boulevard is south of this C Street. Not only that, so you're not coming from the Ontario International Airport flying, hovering west over this property. Not only that, the entity is engaging what is doing a cartwheel, flying over. In the moment that I open up the Ontario International Airport arrivals and departures, they're engaging what is making a U-turn, engaging in the cartwheel conduct, and the entity engages in that while then another plane is flying on. That has nothing to do with what are arrivals and departures from the airport they're stalking. Neither does the entity that is hovering over here, where the airport Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 is located at 2500 Airport Drive. Airport Drive is not east of this property. Airport Drive, you're not flying and doing anything other than what is necessarily targeting in this location, where, by the way, the fake moon is right here over me, where the entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct, stalking as they are monitoring what I'm doing on my device. And this is where the Ontario police engage in all manner of criminal defamation, stalking with the people of the state, communicating a verbal threat to commit kidnapping with the intent to obstruct justice. And those gang members that also refuse to identify themselves are going to federal prison. Those are more gang members that are going to prison with the Ontario police that are being disbanded, and this is all relevant to the pattern of conduct that Mike LORENZ is engaged in. He's going to prison as a terrorist leader, a domestic terrorist leader, repeatedly engaging what is kidnapping me while exercising fictitious authority under the law that they do not have, while in violation of federal stalking statute, Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and subsections 2, where you are engaged in stalking, which the Ontario International Airport is demonstrating while they are targeting in this area, where these old people that will never be receiving government assistance, where the Ontario police are referring to them as criminal summoning, while they are stalking and threatening and monitoring together, while the entity's not complaining about planes outside of zoning, while they're stalking, flying over this senior citizen complex. The entity's stalking by helicopter outside of what would be the zoning rights of this multifamily property, old people that are living in what should be a quaint and peaceful environment, but not where they're gang stalking with that government. Okay, that's the P.O.C, and they're stalking in real time. They're going to prison for gang stalking with that government. That's the entity that's targeting over here, where there are no terminals, there's no airport, no landing, no takeoff that's going to occur, contrary to what I'm documenting. Because don't forget, while they're engaging dipping and diving, like you're landing right here over Wells Fargo, all right, like you're engaging what is landing or taking off right there at the Stater Brothers. Nobody forgot that, where they're hovering over my head on Nevada and Euclid. This is the entity that's stalking. This is P.O.C. The entity's doing so while monitoring what I'm doing on my devices. It's 10:04 p.m. That's the pattern of conduct. Ovid Family Community Library, who committed kidnapping, and they are going to prison. P.O.C. (10:12 p.m.) Monitoring my upload of the videos of this entity stalking onto YouTube. And this is the entity that we're speaking of, my being the reason why the police were summoned, my noise complaint, where the entity is hovering over the senior citizen apartment complex. That level of audible activity where the airport is not conducting any takeoffs from the airport Terminal 2 or 4, there's only one airport, and the entities engage in this sort of conduct, hovering at for example, west of this location, where you're acting like there's a takeoff here, but west of this location, you're acting like you're taking off also over the Stater Brothers parking lot at 646 West Holt Boulevard. This is the entity that is stalking and doing so with impunity. This is relevant to what you listened to the Ontario Police Department, everything that they said and did regarding the malicious pattern of conduct and furtherance of murder with the people of the state who are engaging in that pattern of conduct and doing so as also demons who are corrupt, stalking together and conspiring murder with one another. This is an entity that's doing so, and this is relevant to every gang stalking airline, the Ontario board, the Ontario so-called executive team. They're being removed from the airport's being removed. It is a threat to national security. The ongoing delusional behavior of the mentally ill who are gang stalking in the first place is also relevant to the necessity by shutting down that airport. It's the same Ovid Family Community Library where I am publishing my videos online right now. Video captured at 10:02 and 22 seconds. The video captured at 9:16 and 54 seconds. The video captured at 7:30 and 20 seconds. In fact, I'll go ahead and take a screenshot of that. I'm capturing that at 10:14 p.m. This is what the entity is criminally monitoring. In addition to stalking me, remember, they're maintaining plane activity here. There are no planes hovering over the Argo parking lot north of my location. There are no planes hovering over, for example, the Juan Pollo at Nevada and Euclid Avenue, nor are there from the airport that's taking off, in the same way that there are no takeoffs hovering over the parking lot of Economy Inn, where the entity is stalking me at that hotel where the fake sun is remaining as a matter of documentation, 9:35 a.m., 4:14 p.m., but not when I leave that venue like I did this morning, and there's no possible way that the sun would return to be over that parking lot like I documented yesterday evening at 4:14 p.m. That's where the entity is stalking me by planes, and it is also relevant to the screenshots where you will see the published takeoffs from the airport. The entity is engaging in that while you are at engaging in what is maintaining a criminal pattern of conduct and masquerading as an airport. None of those takeoffs that are published online are going to be included in flying over the Ontario Town Square, downtown Ontario luxury apartments, over the Wells Fargo, next to the Ovid Family Community Library. The entity is clearly stalking in the path. And that's all that evidence relevant to that. It's 10:15 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is psychopathic pacing. This is what the Ontario Police Department are doing as they get out of their vehicles in engineer light and come and approach me. Everything that they're stating not only has substantive value as you analyze it, it's also audible activity in the engineer light where they're monitoring, and then they pace back as a group back to their vehicles while the people of the state are pacing at the C Street turn circle in that engineer light under the fake moon. This is psychopathic pacing using commercial planes. They are going to be placed in prison and in mental asylums. This is P.O.C. It's 10:15 p.m. again. This is another plane concentrating over the Ontario City Hall, the College of Laverne, University of Law, University of Laverne College of Law, and the 280 North Limit Apartments. As you can see, it's competing with my voice. That's an entity that's stalked with amplified audible activity. And I'm capturing, doing so with the people of the state, who are also stalking with the police. So I'm taking pictures of that. They're crossing path in a vehicle that's engineer light while they're engaged in what is very demented, delusional conduct, because they're doing it in real time in front of everyone. But it's demented conduct while demons are engaged in what is actually pacing in engineer light while they're stalking, maintaining noise activity. These are monitoring spirits that are flying a plane stalking, driving a vehicle stalking, doing so in concert with one another where they're not engaging in phone calls like, okay, I'm going to drive by now and then I'm going to fly over now. These are demons that are possessed, and they're acting together with regard to what is a criminal pattern of conduct, which is also tying them together as it's occurring under the fake moon. And this is the entity that's doing so. That's referred to as psychopathic pacing. Doing so, the more that I document the mentally ill behavior, the more that the entity engages in it. And just as a reminder, the entity is engaged in what is gang stalking. The 10:12 p.m. flight from what is flight number F92677 at gate 210 going to San Francisco. This is Frontier Airlines. The entity is engaging in what is stalking as I'm capturing it by this podcast at 10:12 p.m. And this is right now, we're at 4 minutes and 55 seconds. The entity is engaging in what is the use of another plane at 10:15 p.m. And that is again 10:29 p.m., which would be Delta Airlines. That's the next published flight. This is just showing you how the entity is engaging in what is stalking outside of what's published online. And no flights from the airport are going to include what is this hovering conduct over the 280 North Limit Apartments, where the entity engaged in criminal summoning the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police Department, who are also stalking at the same location under the fake moon by helicopter, and doing so with the people of the state who are simultaneously engaging in that psychopathic behavior. That's what's relevant. The 10:12 flight, Frontier Airlines, which is not going to be hovering here, and then also the entity 3 minutes later at 10:15 p.m., which is the entity that's engaging in that, and that's what I'm showing you. It has nothing to do with what's published online. So the entity is, the next flight is 10:29 p.m., going toward what is Atlanta, flight 209, and flight DL 828. That's the Ontario International Airport's published departures. The entity is engaging in what is operating outside of that with regard to what is gang stalking me. And none of the flights from the airport include, and that is also what is very clear, and it's going to be part of the case, when you're taking off, for example, the Delta airline flight, where that flight is hovering with passengers aboard and they're going toward Atlanta, where they're flying, how they're taking off, and how far into the city they're hovering. This is not a mystery. The entity is engaging in very delusional conduct. It's relevant to the analysis that I already gave with regard to the way in which this entity is both being criminally convicted, and they're also going to be diagnosed medically regarding mental illness, and the entity that is engaging in what is a system regarding targeting American citizens pursuant to surveillance. And it's exposing everybody. Sarah's Regis Group, every demon living inside of the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, the demons that are gang stalking by Securitas, working at the town square, patrolling the grounds, gang stalking with regard to what is a system exposing public corruption. What the demons are doing while they're working inside of the Ovid Family Community Library, they're doing while I'm still subject to it outside of the Ovid Family Community Library. What the demons are doing inside of the inside of the 280 North Limit Apartments, a bunch of senior citizens that are gang stalking vagina monitors. They're engaging in that while they're doing so at a so-called law school, a so-called city hall, and it's supposedly traffic along Euclid Avenue. No, those are demons engaging in massive surveillance. While an airport deviates from what are the legitimate operations regarding what it even publishes online, where none of those flights are going to include hovering like they are here, which is a documented pattern of conduct under things like a fake sun and a fake moon and an engineer light. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that is monitoring my evidence as I'm publishing it online, and I also took a screenshot of that. It's currently 10:19 p.m. 10:35 p.m. Monitoring as I download files off my phone and create a new folder for you to view the evidence published to the Google Drive. Recall the screenshot that you can look at yourself, Delta Airlines, coming from what is gate 209, flight number DL 828 at 10:29 p.m. The next flight after that will be 10:40 p.m. It's 10:35 p.m. where the entity is targeting me, where I am in the engineer light and use of my devices, which happens to be the ongoing targeting by the same entity that has a habit of stalking me in planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C.